Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free. You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Hey! Oh! All right, let's go. Everybody have a good Christmas. Did you have a good Christmas? Good holiday so far? I did. We did. All right, let's do this. Man. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Monday, December 29th. 362 days into the new year. 3 days left. Feels like 2. Live from the truthfunders.com studios right here. Downtown, sunny Burbank, California. Truth Funders, the #1 crowdfunding platform for paranormal films, research, expeditions, and inventions of the unknown. Launch date is officially tomorrow. I was just over checking out the site. Man, it's nice. It's a privilege of being me. I get to see the sneaky stuff. It's ready to go, though. Truth Funders tomorrow. The Earth changes tomorrow. Truthfunders.com. Go and register. Go over and click on the Truth Funders banner over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go click, get over there, and get a sneak preview of the site yourself. Just throw your email in there. That's all you got to do. Go check it out. All right, let's go. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. Welcome to everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, north and south, east and west, near and far. All of our friends to the Great White North, Indonesia, Australia, Europe. Welcome to the program. It's going to be a great show. Tonight's a reason to huddle up to your speakers. It's going to be a great show. Got Mike Barra at the bottom of the hour. Going to be joining us. We did a headline, and then at the top of the hour, of course, Olav Phillips will be with us. Our most requested guest night. And we looked and tallied emails and stuff throughout the year. And there were 2 or 3, maybe if we stretched it, 4 names. Mike Barra is one of them. So, called Mike, said, Mike, this is what we're going to do. He said, man, Jimmy, come on, brother. So, Mike Barra, one of the most requested guests of the year, will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. We got a lot to talk about tonight. And then Olav Phillips will be with us at 8 p.m. Pacific time. All right. Big salute to the proud men and women in uniform. We're right here, man. It's the holiday season. They're out there getting it done. It's a crazy world. And you need to stop and pause and think and thank. So now that that's out of the way, podcast is up to date. Faders.org. I will say this. Method, my brother, our thoughts are with you. You know what's going down. and he's not with us tonight. So Method, get better, my brother. And so faders.org is without for a day or two. I don't think there's a captain of the ship. There isn't a captain of the ship for JimmyChurchRadio.com. And it's because of Method. So Method, we're with you, my brother. Text me. All right. Happy birthday to Sir Bear. It's Bear's birthday. Everybody in Twitter, in the sandbox right now. Throw it out there right now. Happy birthday to Sir Bear. Sir Bear. We had a great weekend. We took a couple days off, rolled into the weekend, and Nurse Nancy came down and hung out with us. We had a little party here in Southern California over at Casa de Church with Steve Murillo. Alex Mistretta was there, Dr. J, Steve's wife, Pat, and, of course, Nurse Nancy. And Nancy Nurse. There she is right there. She came down, hung out with us, and I think we did it up first class. And, poor Nancy had to, she had a drive in front of her. And just to let you know, Nancy, we had a couple of toasts in your honor over the next few hours after you left. But we had a great time, and it was great meeting her. And I hope it was cool for her to meet all the people that she's been hearing on the radio and stuff, and got to just hang out and ask questions. And we had a really great time. So that was our weekend. And there you go. All right, so tonight, like I said, Mike Barrett at the bottom of the hour, Olav Phillips at the top of the hour. Tomorrow night, Richard Dolan will be with us. And then we haven't had Fader night for 2 straight weeks now. I'm having my withdrawals. So tomorrow night, we will do a Fader night after Mr. Dolan departs with us. So we'll be taking your phone calls tomorrow night. We'll be talking about predictions and 2015. And maybe that John Teeter 2 guy might call in and see if he can stir the pot a little bit. I'm going to try to open up the lines later on tonight with Olav Phillips. Of course, you can always email throughout the show, Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. That's what you want to do. Also go and follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio, #DMRadioNet. We'll get you into the sandbox. Come hang out. If you want to become a Fadernaut, come over to the sandbox, hang out, and start asking questions like, how do I become a Fadernaut? Somebody will hold your hand. Then you got to get vetted. But once you get vetted, you head over to faders.org, you get your special codes, and become a Fadernaut. If you haven't been to faders.org and checked it out, you need to go over there and see what's up. I want to say a special thanks to Bill and Nancy Burns for being on their program right before this. Yes, I guess that means, I was just talking to Keith, that's like 5 straight hours tonight of radio. But you know what? It's all good. Hanging out with Bill and Nancy. Wow, what a trip. Angel. Always a great conversation over there. And we started to talk about what is probably going to be the main subject of the show tonight, the main topic. Yes, another plane has disappeared. And there's a lot to talk about with that tonight. I've got a bunch of stuff. I've been doing my due diligence over the last couple of days. I was shocked when I read it. And there was something in the back of my mind. I want to get back to Bill and Nancy here in a second. There was something in the back of my mind that was probably what you were thinking, which is they're going to find this one. There's going to be debris any minute now where it disappeared. There's islands, there's land. It's 150 feet of water. It's not 5 miles of ocean deep. So this is going to be a little bit different. And it didn't turn out that way, at least not so far. I don't understand it. I don't. And now I was just on with Bill and Nancy. And Bill asked me what was the most interesting show that we did this year on Fade to Black. And My answer was, and I had to go direct with this because when I looked down our shows from the past year, and I looked, you look at all those guests, and you're like, man, wow, and you start to forget, some amazing moments that have happened over the year, and each show with its own singular situation had something very unique and very cool about it. But for some reason, this year, one of the questions that has been asked of me all year long, what was your favorite show? What's the one thing? Jimmy, what's your favorite? Well, and the reason why that question comes is because we've been very lucky here. Very lucky. The guests have all been amazing. One night after another, it's just been luck. We've just had really great guests all year long. But there's one show that freaked me out. And then I can stretch it out to two because it's a close second. When I say stretch it, they kind of overlap is what I mean by that. I'm not stretching to get to number two. I'm saying they kind of overlap. But the show with Robert Schroeder blew my mind. That show freaked me out. And if you don't, somebody should please in Twitter right now. I don't know what the episode number is, but what was the episode number of Bobby Schroeder? And I'll retweet it. So just get that up there really quick. That show with Bobby Schroeder on how alien propulsion systems, his theory behind it, and how ET could get here in 5 minutes was a mind blower, and how he explained it. So I mentioned it on Future Theater with Bill and Nancy, and I don't want that to just get away from me. That Bobby Schroeder show was just singular. It was just an amazing show. So you've heard me talk about it. So I want to get that up there. So somebody please tweet that really quick. What was that episode number? And I'll retweet it so you can go back and listen to it. And I am sure at some point you will hear my brain melting like into the microphone. Just my frontal lobes just spewing. It was an amazing show. And the other show that freaked me out, here it is, Status Unknown. It was episode 33. So that was almost a year ago. I'm retweeting this now. So there you go. It's now out there. Episode 33. And when you're listening, if you're listening to the show later in the podcast or on YouTube, because this is live right now, but if you're listening later, episode 33, Bobby Schroeder, just go and check that out. And the other one that kind of sticks out was the first Jay Widener show. The second one was great too. Might have been better than the first, but the first show was with the Cross of Henday and Falconelli, was another show that how he pieced everything together was pretty amazing. Peter Lavenda was an amazing show. Robert Schock, John Anthony West. Those were all great shows. The live show that we did with Richard Dolan was good. The show we did after that with Richard Dolan was pretty good. That one's called The Interview. Richard, of course, is going to be with us again tomorrow night. But and then Clifford Stone. Both shows were just absolutely amazing. So with that, I went through our junk drawer and found some cool stuff. So I have some stuff that we're going to give away tomorrow night. One of them, I have an autographed copy of one of Clifford Stone's books. I also have an autographed DVD/CD of Clifford Stone's documents. It's 500,000 documents. I have one of those. I'm going to give that away. And I also have, we'll do this tomorrow night too, end of year little celebration for Fader night tomorrow night. I have Jesse Marcel's Roswell big coffee table book with the big illustrations in it and photographs. So I have that too as well. So we'll give those away tomorrow night. Okay, so that's that. And all of that came out of, what were the best shows, and Clifford Stone just stuck out like a sore thumb. The first Clifford Stone show that we did, we had some audio problems. Not audio, but it was just low in volume. The second show, those issues aren't there. But that first Clifford Stone, even with the issues that we were having, and I think it was because he was just talking really low. But that was a really, really good show. So I was able to dig some of that stuff up, and we'll give that away to a couple of lucky callers tomorrow night on the show. So with that, we're back and excited. We had a great time off, and spending time with friends and family is the most important thing, and we were able to do that. We're going to do that again this week, and I want you to understand, everybody, that friends and family are very important. And with us, our family is so tight. We all live next to each other here in Southern California, so we have 30 or 40 family members. And when Christmas and New Year's rolls along, we all hang out. So we will be doing that New Year's Eve and New Year's Day this year. It is just what we do with our family every year. And I can't use the excuse of the show. So that's it. It's a wonderful time that we do every year. So with that, today, let's get the show cracking. Today, actor Jude Law is 42 years old. How did he make the cut? Gattaca. That's how you make the cut. Comedian Danny McBride is 38. How does he make the cut? What was that TV series? He's the baseball pitcher. But also Tropic Thunder. That's how you make the cut. Frontman Brian Holland of The Offspring is 49. How did he make the cut? Sing a couple of the choruses of his songs. That's how you make the cut. I don't know how he does it, going from low to high. He's amazing. Also, actor John Voight, 76. Mary Tyler Moore is 78 years old. And also today, actor Ted Danson, 67 years old. With that, let's take our first break. It's Fade to Black. I'm back. We're back. You're back. Fadernauts are here. Everybody's in. Tammy, Ken. I'm looking. Stephen G., Allison Bell, Ed Powers. Everybody is checked in tonight. Did Les check in? Did I miss Les? How did I miss Les? Donna's here. Spiritual warrior today. Lou is here. There you go. George is here. Mike Barris checked in. Walter. Stallone. What was that movie we just saw? Oh! The Interview. In our country, it's called the Stallone. Watch The Interview. I'll talk about that when I come back. This is Fade to Black at JChurch Radio. Follow us on Twitter. Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. We are only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Mike Barra. In 10 minutes at the bottom of the hour. Top of the hour, Olav Phillips. Tomorrow night, Richard Dolan. And all of you Fadernauts will be having a Fader night. Wednesday and Thursday, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, we're taking off, but we're contemplating, and I don't think Keith even knows this yet, but what if we have a fader night on Friday? You guys want to come hang out on Friday? We're thinking about it. Keith's head just spun around. Wait a minute, I take Fridays off. Follow us right now on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. Come hang out in the sandbox. Barrett Owens is here. Ruth just checked in. Jonathan, Mike Anderson. Everybody's here. Lisa, she's here. Come hang out with us in the sandbox tonight. Check it out. Crazy news over the last couple of days. And, of course, I'm talking about Air Asia, Flight 8501, 162 people on board. And it seems to have simply disappeared. I just came off of a Bill and Nancy show, and I had said there on Future Theater that I'd be saying these exact words again on my show. But I want somebody to explain to me this coincidence. That's what I want. There's something missing here. Now, this is where you want to know where conspiracy theories start. And you give fuel to the fire and you cause controversy and you want people to think and stop and ask questions. Well, something like this happens for the third time in a year to a little country like Malaysia, and you have to stop. That's when you just go, wait a minute, pump the brakes. We need to slow this bus down. I need somebody to explain to me, because I don't get it. Now we're way beyond odds and coincidences and stupid. It just happened. No. We are way beyond that now. Now this is where we need some explaining. We need some splaining. The plane was flying from Surabaya to Singapore. It's a 2-hour flight. 2-hour flight. Now, to put that in context, think about a 2-hour flight here in the United States somewhere. 2 hours. What? 2 hours. LA to Phoenix. What? 2 hours. A 2-hour flight. Went missing, 7:24 a.m. Drops off a radar. There's a couple of things in the Java Sea, in between the islands of Belitung and Borneo. All of the references about this area, heavily traveled shipping lanes, air lanes, shallow waters, it's 150 feet deep. Why didn't somebody... It's 7:24 in the morning. Sun's up. Why doesn't somebody see this? Why doesn't somebody see it? I don't care about the rain. There's boats, right? Heavily traveled. This isn't out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 1,000 miles west of Australia. This is right there. No witnesses, no video, no nothing. The plane just poof, disappears. I'm not suggesting anything crazy. Vortexes, black holes, time warp. I'm not suggesting anything like that. I'm saying after MH370, how does this happen? Again. How does it happen? After all the talk this year for the last 10 months about MH370 and cell phones and the internet and GPS and satellites and radars and everything, after all of that talk, how does this happen again? Where they don't even know where to go start looking is insane to me. It's insane. Airbus A320, okay, we have Boeing 777s, but also we're talking about a plane with high technology. Out of all of the countries in the world, we're talking about Malaysia. And out of all the countries in the world, the one country, not the United States, the one, Malaysia, right now that would want to account for the presence of their plane every second of every flight. How is this possible? How is it possible? I need explanations. And today, the silence of just saying it's at the bottom of the ocean, that doesn't fly. It just disappeared. It doesn't fly. For all of those families over there right now going through exactly what all of the families from MH370 are still going through it. Nothing's ended for them. It's crazy for them to say that air traffic control, and this is all the data that we have, this is it. Air traffic control approved the pilot's request to turn left, but denied him permission for the plane to climb to 38,000 feet from 32,000 feet. Doesn't fly. It doesn't fly. Malaysia has now, if everybody on this plane is dead, and everybody on 370 is dead, and we know about MH17, 699 deaths in 2014 for the country of Malaysia. March 8th, MH370. July 17th, MH17. And now Air Asia 8501. I need an explanation. One of the things that was so out there with MH370 were the pings, the transponders. There's not one, I haven't heard anybody talk about that. And we are talking about ships and planes in that corridor all over the place. These ships and planes are not flying 1,000 miles west of Australia, where it takes time. It's all right there. How come the second that plane disappeared off a radar, why wasn't there 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 search planes, boats, everybody dispatched? I don't get that. I read the reports. They have one C-130 in the air. One C-130. The area that they need to search in, apparently, is the size of Indiana and Ohio. Indiana and Ohio. You know how small that is? I don't get it. There are rumors I had heard yesterday, but been hard to confirm. 17 people didn't show up for the flight. That's kind of strange. Now, again, and I'll say it, if you want to feed conspiracy theorists and give them something to fight about, give them this. Because of the odds of this happening, I have no idea. There's a lot of zeros on it. 150 feet of water. There's no excuses for anything. For the Indonesian official that came out right away, and I say this kind of stuff all the time on this show, but it's so true because this is happening in real time right now. For him to come out, our early conjecture, this is a quote, our early conjecture is that the plane is at the bottom of the sea, end quote. How can you say that? How can you come out and say you don't know unless you know? We don't know. Did it crash land on an island? There's reports now that there was smoke off of an island. I just don't understand it. I don't understand the lackadaisical response from the United States. Oh, we have to wait for them to ask. Say what? What? It's crazy. It's one of the craziest things. Last week, before 8501 went down, disappeared, I had said then that 2014 is a year that we're never going to forget. We're going to look back in 10 years and go, yeah, 2014 was insanity. And then this happens. I don't get it. I need explanations. There's a story here somewhere. Starting to think more and more strange things about 370 and MH17. That's right. Now that this has happened, I just need explanations. Even if we just go with it, it was the weather. What are the odds? 3 Malaysian planes in a year? I had heard, and this is what kicks up the odds even further. Check this out. This was the lowest year for aviation accidents and disasters, I think, in history. The lowest. So the 3 incidents that did happen all came from Malaysia. I'm sorry. I'm going there. There is something funky. It just doesn't smell good. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. How you doing tonight, everybody? We're back. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Shoot me an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. When I come back, Mike Barra will be joining us. Don't touch that mouse.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Yeah. Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are bespoke radio for the masses, live from the truthfunders.com studios right here in Burbank, California. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Shoot us an email right now, jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Yes, the emails are coming in. I'm looking at them now. I have got them. Mike Barra is a New York Times bestselling author, lecturer, and TV personality. He began his writing career after spending more than 25 years as an engineering designer consultant for major aerospace companies, where he was a card-carrying member of the military-industrial complex. Mike's first book, Dark Mission, The Secret History of NASA, co-authored with Richard C. Hoagland, was a New York Times bestseller. His second book, The Choice, was published in 2010. In 2012, Mike published Ancient Aliens on the Moon. In 2013, Mike returned with Ancient Aliens on Mars, which examines the hidden history of Mars and the vast ancient civilization which once flourished there. In 2014, this year, he published his fifth book, Ancient Alien on Mars 2. He appears in Ancient Aliens. Hey, Mike, what was the other show, UFO Hunters?
Ancient Aliens, Uncovering Aliens.
Uncovering Aliens.
America's Book of Secrets, Hangar One.
I was gonna get to all of that.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. And he appears in the next season of Hangar One with yours truly, myself. Yeah, man, we're kind of like co-stars.
We don't appear together as far as I know.
But see, people don't need to know that. See, we could treat it. Yeah, it's not like Gilligan's Island. Yeah,
it's not like a two-man show that you would see on, one of those streaming video network things.
Well, if you and I were on there,
one of us separate listens.
If we were on there together, it'd be like a three-man show.
Yeah.
Two big dudes, man. Oh, wait. No, you're little Mike Barra tonight.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, I love to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
And, how does it feel to be, I don't know, one of the most requested guests on Fade to Black? I mean, it was just like a weekly thing. And I mean, how does that make you feel? Because if it was up to the listeners, we would have you on once a week. How do you feel about that?
Well, if it was up to me, I'd be on once a week too. No, I that's great. I didn't realize that, and I really appreciate that. I really do from the bottom of my heart. It's nice to be. I was going to say loved, but maybe people don't really love me all that much. But it's nice to be appreciated, and I try to be just who I am and be an entertaining guest to have on. And there's so many things I love to talk about that I think your audience is interested in. It just feels really great to have that reciprocated.
Well, that's totally true, and it does come at you. And the Fade or Not family, man, is a warm place. But the shows that you were on. You ruffled some feathers, but what was crazy about that is it was never interpreted as negative, but what it was it was talked about a lot, and it still is. I can fire up Twitter right now, man. I can fire it right up. But and that's a good thing. That is good radio. I have said, and I want your answer to this. I've said this many times. If you have a program, a radio program that you agree with as a listener, yeah, okay, yeah, right. That's not interesting. That's boring stuff. You need to have something that makes you think and gets you angry and makes you just want to fight. That is, then you've got a message. Yes? Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think the thing is, Jim, Jimmy, the thing is that I just, I will only believe in the things that I feel like I can prove to my own satisfaction. And your audience and I have some separation on a few issues, and there's nothing wrong with discussing that. And just having that back and forth about the information. But that in and of itself makes for kind of strident positions, and whenever you have strident, polarized positions like that, you're going to have fireworks, and it's going to be interesting.
It's just popped up on Twitter. Ask Mike if he thinks 9/11 was an outside job.
An outside job or an inside job?
Well, they both mean the same thing.
Well, the thing is about that too, Jimmy. Without getting deeply into it again tonight, although
we have so much to talk about. We don't need to
all
go
the
there.
Airplane talk.
Yeah.
It's that we can talk about these things, but it's important for everybody to appreciate that, like, not everybody. There's a lot of things out there that are commonly believed that are just not true. And to me, I just felt really strongly about having to shoot some of these things down, especially on the anniversary, because I think it's important to focus on who the enemy really is. That's all I got to say.
That's fine. And one of the things that about you that I respect a lot, and I've told you this off the air enough, is that you stick to your guns. And if you have somebody, if you flip flopped on this right now, if you flip flopped, right, you're now Mike Alex Jones Barra, right, you turn into that guy, then you've lost all integrity. And that's the truth. You stick to your guns, and that's it.
That's not likely to happen for a couple of reasons. Number one, I have a tremendous amount of respect for my own opinion. That's the first thing. And I don't come to my positions in any kind of a haphazard or very, very fast way. I mean, I like to dig into things deeply before I come to a position. But once I get to that point, I'm pretty darn sure that I can back that position up. So, that's just I'm not likely to be a flip-flopper. I may change my mind on things. I've changed my mind on different things over the years, but it takes about 10 years of talking me into it before I really go there.
And what do you do? I have my cough button on. What do you do if, 6 months from now, some crazy email comes out from Bush and the White House back to Saudi Arabia and the Bin Laden family, and there was a a money transfer and some crazy thing that happened a year before 9/11. What do you do then?
Well, I think that's probably unlikely, and you know,
that's not the question. That's not the
verification on it. Then I start to rethink things. But the truth is, you know, that doesn't. I'm not saying there's no conspiracy around 9/11. What I'm saying is the evidence that's been presented so far to me is very weak, especially when we get so far out on the limb, you know, that we're basically trying to stand on the twig. And some of the twigs are, well, it wasn't really Muslims. Well, you know, it wasn't really these guys. Well, I'm sorry, you know, we do have the video of them going through airplane security. We have people that knew them. There was an airline steward. Most people don't know this, but there was an airline worker who knew these two guys and saw them and actually talked to them before they got on the plane. Muhammad Atta, one of the other guys. And she was like, well, I can get you guys seats together if you're not seated together. And they said, no, we don't want seats together. And she remembered thinking that was really weird. I mean, when you put all these little pieces together, to me, it's just like you've got a situation where it's that you take it to such extremes. I mean, I'm prepared to say, oh, there was some possibility of some sort of conspiracy there. It's just the evidence I've seen so far doesn't support that. What it supports is that some pissed off Muslims hijacked airplanes and flew them into buildings. That's what the evidence supports, in my opinion.
You and I are going to go out for drinks one night. At the end of the night, you'll be all a new man. Hey,
February at the latest.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to it. Now,
yes, I may have some news on that.
Okay.
Also later on, privately.
You got it. You got it. Okay.
Not that we ever talk off air. Not that we ever talk off air.
Yeah, ever. So it's a good thing. Cell phones are free long distance. So now we have the third Malaysian plane to apparently have a bad ending this year in 2014. At what point is this beyond coincidence?
It's getting really close if it isn't there already. I mean, we know what may be a conspiracy theorist in the first place was TWA 800, the shoot down of a 747, excuse me, over New York, and the government came along and said that, there was a spark in the fuel tank and that made the airplane explode, which is, to anybody who really knows anything about airplanes, it's the most commercial jetliners. That's the most ridiculous theory ever put out by man. Far more ridiculous than the 9/11 stuff. And that's what got me started on all this. So when these aviation things happen, it starts to get a little bit weird. And, you know, you got to remember that area is part of what is commonly referred to as like the Asian Bermuda Triangle. It's at the right latitude. It's at the right longitude. So there is some weird stuff that goes on there. But, you know, to me, in the case of flight of MH370, you know, the very last radar track we had on that airplane was that it had turned around backwards. It had gone to high altitude, about 45,000 feet, which if the pilot wanted to kill all the passengers, he turns off the oxygen, flies up to 45,000 feet. They all suffocate within about 3 minutes.
Right.
Then he drops the airplane back down, heads back south, and then he makes a right-hand turn headed toward Pakistan and Iran, and he was following right in behind, I believe it was a Singapore Airlines 777, right on the same track and closing on that guy. And that's the last time we saw him on radar. But if you believe the news reports, oh no, he went south and crashed somewhere near Antarctica, which, you know, I mean, I'm sorry. To me, I just take a look at it and say that plane is either in Iran or Pakistan, or it was there, or it may even be the same plane that was shot down in the Ukraine. I don't know, but it clearly was headed in that direction when it disappeared. So there was something really nefarious going on there. Now, this one is even stranger in a way because it flew into some really heavy storms. But the fact is, these planes, these jet airliners, are made to handle these kinds of storms. I mean, it was apparently very severe, really bad turbulence. But, you know, at Boeing, we used to design to what they called fail-safe design, which is basically you figure out how strong the components of the aircraft have to be, given the likely stresses that they will endure, you know, in any kind of turbulent weather. And then you make it twice as strong as that. That was Boeing's policy when I worked there. And it was still the policy when I worked on the 777. So these are pretty sturdy aircraft, even though when they're, when they're crashed into a concrete reinforced building like the Pentagon, they're pretty flimsy. But in terms of being in the air, they're pretty tough. They're designed to take this. And a lightning strike, I mean, again, they've done a lot of research on lightning strikes, and we know how to dissipate the energy, the electricity. There's a lot of little lightning rods on the aircraft, on the wings and so forth, that should dissipate that energy. So, what made this thing go down? It just doesn't seem very likely that it was a storm. So we're left with this really interesting mystery. It gets interesting to us because it's academic and our families aren't involved, but something weird's going on.
Well, and then you throw in the amazing fact that they don't know anything. They don't know where it is. They don't know anything. And that's the part that you just can't say a plane today, and that's the most shocking thing, that something has disappeared. You can't say that. You can't. You need to have, and for them to come to this conclusion so quickly, it disappeared. We don't know. That's shocking.
Jimmy, what's really weird to me is not that the policy was not changed to make sure every aircraft was pinging GPS information at all times, 100% of the time on every airline around the world. That doesn't bother me that was not done after MH370. What bothers me is it doesn't bother anybody in the media. The people in the media are acting like, oh, well, this is just obviously a dumb oversight and there must have been some bureaucracy involved. And it takes nothing. It takes nothing to just say all of these transponders, these GPS devices, the Inmarsat data, all that will now be active on all aircraft. If that had been active and could not have been turned off, we'd know exactly where MH370 went. But the fact that it wasn't done indicates somebody had a reason for it not to be done. So I still think the most likely explanation is it had something to do with the storm is what brought this airplane down. But there's this other possibility that it was needed for some reason, for some other kind of operation, the way MH370 might have been needed. And, the only way you can steal an airplane now is to turn all that stuff off. And if that's not an option, you can never lose an airplane, can you?
Well, and you said it all yourself right now. Data streaming, we all know what a cell phone can and cannot do.
Yeah.
It is nearly something as simple as leaving your phone on in the cockpit. That's it.
If I stop making payments on my Beamer, believe me, within 3 months, BMW would come get my car, and there's nothing I could do to hide it because there's a built-in GPS in the system. It's built into every car now, and they know where at any time anybody needs to find a car, to pick up a few $1,000s worth of payments from somebody or repossess the car, they can go find it. Every modern car. So
I can go beyond that. How about
with our $45,000, $50,000 cars, but we won't do it with our $20-30 million airplanes.
How about the shopping carts with the little radio wheels, that lock up when you go too far out of the parking lot?
I didn't know about that one. That's even better. That's interesting.
And all I'm saying is it's such a simple technology that is nearly free. There's not some great network that needs to get installed here. It's already in place. I don't understand
the fact that it wasn't implemented immediately after MH370, here we are, 6 or 8, 9 months after MH370. The fact that it was not implemented it's more than suspicious. It's a little bit too weird for me. It just doesn't add up, and I don't simply ascribe it to government bureaucracy or companies not wanting to spend money. These guys actually bragged that they would never lose an airplane like this, and now they've lost one. So,
yeah, right. Well, no, two. And just think for a second, Malaysia. I don't know how many people live in Malaysia. I don't. Somebody will tweet that in a second. What's the population of Malaysia? But when you think about this, is it if 3 planes went down tied to Tulsa, Oklahoma? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that raises a flag somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. There's something weird going on in Tulsa, right?
It just doesn't smell right to me. And I just cannot believe, and there's the aspect of the media not addressing that. They address the sensational side of it, but they don't get down to the real nuts and bolts, that there's something going on here. That's it. Oh, wow, it's so sad for the people of Malaysia. Well, it is. Okay, I understand that they've had three air disasters in a year. Okay, all right, that's fine, but there's something really deep going on here. Address that fact. And the other side of it, for me, and I don't know what it is. I really don't. But we're talking about odds here. Yeah. Odds. Yeah. Go play the New York State Mega Ball, and you're going to hit that lottery way before anything like this would ever happen. Probably 10 times. And it's those kind of odds that we're talking about. It is just insane to me. I keep saying it, but now my head is just spinning around that this is happening right in front of us, and they're acting like it's just coincidence. It just happened. It's the luck of the draw.
This brings up a phenomenon that I've experienced myself. I mean, the Hoagie and I wrote Dark Mission back in 2007, and I'm now working on Ancient Aliens and Secret Societies. And one of the things that I've been able to show is that, there was a Freemason on pretty much every lunar landing that we conducted on the moon. And, Buzz Aldrin even brought a Masonic apron, and he even admitted doing a ceremony on the moon, which it turns out has Egyptian Masonic origins. And you tell people this, and it's like, oh, yeah, the Masons, you're crazy. But you know what? If I said that they were all Mormons, and they were all members of they all went to the very same Mormon church, and they performed some Mormon ritual on a lunar surface, people probably wouldn't think that was too weird. If it was some Catholic ritual, they're all Catholics. They all went to the very same Catholic church in Washington, D.C. And then, they performed the communion ceremony on the moon, which is what Buzz Aldrin claims that he did, which, again, has its roots in a Masonic. If you say it was Catholic, everybody would go, oh, those dang Catholics are at it again. Or, there's like safe conspiracies that you're allowed to believe in. And then there's the unsafe ones, which are probably the ones you ought to pay attention to. So I understand the phenomenon, but it's up to us. It's up to us to decide. I guess it's up to us to really pressure these guys to start asking the right questions. But nobody seems to want to do that. It's weird. We've got all this power at our fingertips. You have Twitter. I mean, you literally could take all your Twitter followers, and as the show grows, you're going to multiply them, and you could put them into action. I remember on the old Coast to Coast show, Hoagie was actually able to get some pictures taken of the face on Mars when there was public pressure applied. You can apply pressure, but nobody seems to want to. Yeah, everybody would rather get a picture of their dog in a Santa costume on a treadmill. Okay. So right. We're really going to use this for?
Right. And when we look at, and I had read this in the intro of the show, that the search area is the size of Indiana and Ohio. Okay. Now, those are not big states. And if you just plopped that size of a search area off of the east coast of the United States, well, first off, I would think that we would know exactly where the plane came down because of our radar system, but apparently not because of what's going down in Indonesia. But if that was the case, how long would it take for us to do a search area like that right off of the coast of the United States? I would say a couple of hours. And it sounds crazy. You know what? It's not that big of an area. Throw some planes out there and get it done. That's what you do. And
you can narrow it down even more because you do have the radar data and you do have trajectory and altitude and information, and basically there's sort of a debris ellipse that's created from that last known position, which they do know in this case, and basically it has to be within that particular ellipse, so it makes it a smaller area. And again, I don't know, unless of course all this stuff is at the bottom of the ocean there. But that's not that deep. Like you said, it was 150 feet of water, right? It's not that.
It's 150 feet deep. And the other thing that was talked about with MH370, which right now seems to be some media silence on this, are the transponders and the pings. There's all those boats, all that traffic, all of those airplanes, everything that's flying around, everything that's going. The one thing that they do talk about right now is how heavily trafficked this area is. It is it's a freeway of airplanes and ships, and nobody saw anything. And with all of this action that's going on out there right now, Coast Guards and other things that because this is a traffic lane, isn't there Coast Guards? Isn't there emergency response?
And, these are all sovereign states there, and they're not necessarily all that friendly to each other. So they've all got their military radar as well, and you would think they would be able to bring all this stuff to bear and have some idea what happened to the aircraft. I mean, it must have pinged as it went down, but they're saying it just disappeared. They're acting like it just disappeared in thin air, and that doesn't seem at all plausible.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. I'm driving this one home. This is not 1,000 miles out to sea where the ocean is 5 miles deep. I understand if you're going to throw all of that at me, there's obstacles to overcome there. I get that. Planes have to fly a long ways. Boats have to, but this is right there. I just can't see a plane crashing on the coast of the United States where there's all kinds of air traffic and boats and everything else. And then you don't know a single thing. And this happened in the daytime. This is 7:30 in the morning. I mean, it may have been raining. I get that. But nobody saw the plane float down from miles away.
And again, the scenario is, how did it go down? Did the storm knock it down somehow? I mean, you can have very severe wind shear that can knock a plane out of the sky, but that's only, for instance, when it's coming in for a landing and it's at slow speed and its nose is high. They're saying, well, there's some indication now that the plane may have been going almost 200 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour too slow, and then maybe it stalled. Well, if you stall at 35,000 feet, okay, if you get into a stall attitude, any reasonably competent pilot, I would think, would be able to correct for that, get the airplane back to a non-stall attitude and get it moving forward again. And, on the other hand, I know some people that used to train pilots from overseas, and they said some of them were incredibly clueless and really dangerous, but that was also 30 years ago. So, I just would think that if it went into a stall, that the pilot would be able to recover it within 35,000 feet. That's a long, even in stormy conditions, a pilot would probably be able to do that. So to me, it's just not making sense. It's not adding up. And
no, it does.
Your spidey sense you have going, buddy, is absolutely correct on this one. I'll just say that, and we'll have to see where it goes.
When you look at the map and you look at all of the islands that are there, which just I don't know what the count is, but there's a lot. And then you have all of the boats and all of the traffic. That one person didn't point to the sky going, "Hey, look at that." Mm-hmm. Not one. Not one report, not one cell phone video, it just doesn't make sense. And I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. This is the time when, spidey sense, this is the one time when your conspiracy radar is just going off. Your BS meter is racked out, and you just know something doesn't feel right here. I'm not saying that this plane went down over Manhattan. It's not about that. But there had to have been witnesses somewhere if it happened the way that they say that it happened.
And again, as an example, when TWA 800 went down on a fireball, hundreds of people saw it all along the coast, and this was not that much farther out off the coast than TWA 800 was. It was out flying over water. So it just doesn't. It doesn't add up, but we don't have enough information right now to really know, what the alternative scenario is. MH370, I think the alternative scenario is dead clear. It was doing exactly what it was suspected of doing, which is it was going to close in and follow another 777 really close so that the two planes would look like one blip on the radar screen. That plane was stolen. It was hijacked. But this one, I have no clue what happened to it.
And the odds of it being, another plane from Malaysia. Oh man, I just want an explanation. I will never get it. But
don't fly to Malaysia is one piece of advice. I have an explanation.
I know, and I thought about that today. That it's not a funny joke, but if you're living in that part of the world right now, do you even get on a plane?
Yeah.
Seriously, don't fly. Don't fly. Well, you know what? I don't want to make light of it, but I wouldn't.
No.
I really will. It's something strange. Hey, Mike, 2015 is coming up. Before I let you go tonight, any predictions for 2015?
Predictions for 2015. Well, to me, what's been the most interesting is that there seems to be a lot of really weird stuff going on around the sun. A lot of Soho stuff has been being picked up. And I think we're going to continue to get really good information about Mars and about the sun and just about interesting, weird things that are going on out there. Now, specifically, one of the things that is, I think, the most interesting is that there was a video that was actually shown on that Sci-Fi Channel special that I was on a few months ago, the aliens on the moon thing. There was this big round object sucking plasma out of the sun, and that just, to me, I just think that the growth of the YouTube information is going to be really important to breaking things out in the future, and I think it's going to be something that we're just going to see more and more and more of. Other than that, I really see Fade to Black just like exploding all over the world. That's happening. And the other prediction I have for 2015 is that the Seattle Seahawks will win their second consecutive Super Bowl.
Oh, you're going to go there. You're going to go there. You're going to go there. Oh, what?
Now, Jimmy, to me, what's amazing, just real quickly, is just all the stuff. We talk about these things. We offline a little bit. I'll show you some pictures of stuff that people find on Mars, the Curiosity rover, and there's this army of people out there now looking at all this information and finding stuff that slips through the cracks. And I just think that's the exciting thing to me, is all the stuff that we're going to find on Mars and we're going to find in space, the videos that people are going to pick up from official sources where stuff's going to slip through the crack. And I really think that's where to me, that's where the momentum needs to push, is to get more over to that stuff, because I think begging the government to give us their official documents is not really going to amount to anything. But
so I can go on the record that Mike Barrett just said in 2015 YouTube is going to take off.
Well, it has to take off, but I mean, actually get.
I'm just playing with you, man.
I know it's good.
I'm just playing with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and everybody out there needs to understand. Mike and I talk a lot offline, and it's another thing to bring him onto the show. We don't think about maybe bringing Mike on as much as we should, because Mike and I are talking so much off of the show. But again,
they don't hear that. See,
no,
the audience
they don't.
Doesn't hear that. They would kill to hear some of the stuff we talk about offline, right?
And it'll always stay between us.
That's right.
It'll always stay between us. Thank you so much, Mike. Hey, have a great new year. Give my best to your brother, and we will talk soon, man. Thank you so much.
And thank you, and all the best to the Fadernauts out there. It's a great show, and I just love being a part of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Barra, everybody. Mike Barra. Yeah, it's going to be a crazy 2015. All right. Coming up, Olav Phillips will be joining us here right after the break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and I will be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com.
JJCR in your face.
JimmyChurchRadio.com on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Shoot us an email right now to Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio. Olav Phillips is a regular writer for Paranoia Magazine and Conspiracy HQ. He also wrote and consulted for Mysteries Magazine and served as executive producer and principal researcher for Ground Zero Radio with Clyde Lewis, our good friend. With 24 years experience in UFO and conspiracy research and study, his area of interest is the secret space program Breakaway Civilizations, and is considered an international expert on Alternative 3. Can't wait to talk about that tonight. He has appeared on many popular radio shows as well as television presentations, including Shadows in the Dark Radio, Coast to Coast AM, Voyager, Ground Zero, and now Fade to Black. Olav has contributed to many of the television presentations you've seen on Area 51 UFOs and conspiracies. Mr. Phillips studied anthropology and sociology at the University of California, Davis. I would like to welcome to the program Olav Phillips. Olav, are you with us tonight?
I am. I'm here.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Welcome to the program. And this is your first time with us, so I have to do the disclaimer at the beginning, which is this is just an open-ended conversation between friends. You're a guest in my home. We're kicking back on a couch, and we're just going to start where we start. We're going to end where we end, and hopefully we'll still be friends. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So I'm going to throw you a couple of softballs first, really quick. How'd you get hooked up with Clyde Lewis?
Oh, well, many years ago, the first website that I had was called the S4 database, and Clyde had come across the website, and he wanted to talk about S4 and some of the things that happened at Area 51. And so over time, we got to know each other, and it really started to kick off about 6 months after I was on. Maybe it was 3 months. It's a long time ago now. Mm-hmm. But he got a mysterious fax from somebody who claimed that there was a UFO that crashed in Tracy, California.
Right.
Yeah, and this fax purported to explain how it crashed and how it was shot down, and at the same time there was a tire fire, and so Clyde called me up, and he was very excited. He said, "Hey, you live near there?" I said, "Well, kind of. I live about an hour away," but I looked into it for him, and eventually that got to be something that both of us were quite known for, was the Tracy crash.
And for for the audience, really quick, tell us about the Tracy crash, and where is Tracy, California? I mean, I know, but the audience, set it up for them a little bit.
Sure. Well, Tracy is about maybe I have to think of traffic, right? Because we have real bad traffic. But maybe an hour and a half east of San Francisco. It's out in the Central Valley, kind of our bread bowl, so to speak. It's where in California, we grow a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruits and things. They grow in the Central Valley, and Tracy's part of that. It's actually adjacent to I-5. And basically what had happened is that there was a mysterious tire fire that this guy had been illegally storing tires for years on his land, and he was improperly disposing of them. And then one day they caught fire, and it burned for, I think, 2 years or something crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, and so, a lot of people were searching for a reason why it started. I don't think Clyde even actually covered it. I don't think he even talked about it. But one day he got a fax, and the fax said that the DSP satellite network, the defense satellite network that's put up into space ostensibly to detect ICBM launches, had detected an object inbound, and they had scrambled two fighters, F-18s. I'm trying to remember where they scrambled them from. Now they've shut down a lot of the bases here, but back then we had more Navy bases. I think it was from Alameda at the time, and they had scrambled two F-18s, and they had used an anti-satellite missile. It talked about a KKV, which is a kinetic kill vehicle, but it's an anti-satellite missile was fired from these two F-18s, and it hit the target at high altitude, and the thing basically caught on fire and tumbled across the sky. Because at the same time the tire fire started, there's actually a very anomalous kind of meteorite big meteorite that streaked across the sky here. And there were also people that claimed that there was a laser fired from Lawrence Livermore, which is about maybe 30 minutes from Tracy, 30 minutes west of Tracy. And so apparently it had crashed and then it had crashed in a secured area that belongs to Livermore, where they do secret weapons testing. And then they had lit the tires on fire to cover it up. Because once the tire fire started, Lawrence Livermore actually sent out a bunch of their super cool, super secret firefighters from the installation out there to try to help put the fire out. And because it's a tire fire, the whole area is sealed off, because it's very toxic, and moving bulldozers in and out and moving objects in and out on flatbed trucks, it's not a big deal, right? You expect to see things in flatbed trucks moving toward a tire fire to put it out.
Sure.
Well, yeah, so we had a couple reports of something large that was covered by a tarp that was moved out of there on a flatbed truck after it occurred.
So it was such an interesting. I remember when the whole thing went down, and we were getting all of these different reports coming in about it. It just felt a little bit strange having the meteor flaming overhead, the UFO sighting, and the tire fire all happening at the same time. It was kind of a strange event. What was the conclusion that you ended up coming to, since you were like lead investigator?
Well, the conclusion I came to is that there was no definitive proof one way or the other. Right. I didn't have a photo. I mean, I couldn't tell you definitively. But what was interesting about the facts that made me buy into the facts, and I try not to be gullible, but you want to believe the facts, right? The interesting part about it is that they talked about these F-18s carrying an anti-satellite missile, and I'm a former Air Force brat, and my family has been in the Air Force for a long time, and I thought to myself, well, an F-18 can't carry an anti-satellite missile. That's an F-15 Air Force thing, right? But it turns out that there is a anti-satellite missile that can be fired from an F-18. The other thing that was interesting is that it had talked about one of the keyhole satellites, which is one of the surveillance satellites, spy satellites, and this spy satellite had some sort of like very odd next generation optics. And when I looked into it, there was some evidence that there was a program to build optics that were similar to what the facts talked about. Obviously, I'm reading what's in the public domain. So what's not in the public domain, who knows, right? So there were a lot of weird coincidences in the facts that lined up. And, there are no such thing as coincidences. So having these factors line up gave the facts some credibility to me. Plus, we could never figure out who sent it. We could never trace the phone number.
Right. Hey, I'm just reading right now. This is just coming across the wire. Shooting star, the brightest object ever seen in the Los Angeles skies, is happening right now. Yeah, I'm reading it in real time as we're talking about this. Westminster, California, that's LAX. Santa Barbara, Torrance. Wow, pretty crazy. Brightest thing, I'm reading the comments on this is meteors, amsmeteors.org. The brightest thing I've ever seen in the night sky outside of the moon. Wow, going down right now. I'm going to retweet this. You should, I don't know if you're following us on Twitter, but I'm going to tweet this now out to everybody so they can actually see this. Wow, pretty crazy. And I'm in the bunker. My studio is, no windows, soundproofed, secure installation kind of thing. And so I can't jump up and like look out the windows. One time I was on the air, this is years ago, in 2007, 2008, we're on the air in Studio City, California at Universal Studios. And we were on like the 20th floor of this building. And the studio itself looked out over the 101 freeway. And we looked at, and on the wire came this report of a police chase. And my producer looked out the window, and we could see this Bentley rolling up the 101 freeway, doing like 30 miles an hour, followed by 20 highway patrols. But we were able to see that live on the air. It was pretty funny. And then, awesome. Later on, like 15 minutes later, it came back down the freeway in the other direction, still doing like 30 miles an hour. Then we watched him exit the freeway and then pull out outside of our building. So after our broadcast, we went down to the street, and there was this big standoff shootout thing that happened right in front of us. Pretty trippy. But I can't do any of that here. My point to the story is I can't look out the windows and look at this flaming fireball fly across L.A.
Well, you know, if you're going to have a police chase doing it in Bentley, at least you're going to go out in style. Right?
Yeah, it was a crazy story. That guy ended up getting shot by the police right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, okay, that's another story another time. Okay, where were we? Okay, so now here we are. We're at the end of 2014. Obviously, we have this plane disappearance. But looking back, before I want to get into Alternative 3 and breakaway civilizations, and it's something that we don't get to talk a lot on this show unless, Richard Dolan's on or something, and he'll be on tomorrow night. But for 2014, anything stick out for you now that we're at the end of the year?
I think that the most interesting thing that I wrote about, that I researched, is there was a ham operator. It's interesting to me because a lot of times when you write about this stuff, you can put in the research and you put in the effort, but there's not always a payback. There isn't always that aha moment, like, aha, you were right. Like I wrote a whole book about the secret space program, and it's not like somebody's going to knock on my door and go, you were right. Here's a man, here's all the ships, and here's their photos. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
But I did have one where I was vindicated, so to speak, and a ham operator had detected signals coming out of North Korea, and the signals, it was a number station, and number stations are spy stations. They basically send messages in a numeric code using these one-time pads, and it's a simplistic system of how they do it, but it's actually complicated because it's unbreakable effectively. And this guy had gotten this North Korean number station that was going, and it was on a subcarrier of the Voice of Korea, which is North Korean propaganda station. And what was interesting about it is that it was the number station, and then it was a really long digital transmission behind it, and it was really, really long. And these transmissions are usually very short. What somebody told me is that they're less than 30 seconds, because any more than 30 seconds, and they can triangulate your position.
Sure.
And so, so it's less than 30. Well, this thing's like 2 minutes long. It's just 2 minutes of a grinding modem sound. And I was trying to, at the time I was trying to figure out what was this? And the poor ham guy was beat up. The other hams were telling him, oh, there's nothing special about this. This happens all the time. And he got it in Ohio, which is really interesting because it was incredibly powerful. And, oh, no, you just got it on a skip signal. It's no big deal, no big deal. And I did the research. And at the time, in doing the research, I discovered that there were a couple of trawlers, like Russian spy trawlers,
right,
that were sitting off the coast of California, because I could hear their encrypted transmissions on shortwave. And so I started to put all these things together, and it basically, what it appeared was that the North Korean number station was targeting either a submarine or a ship that was out at sea, because it needed that much power so that the ship could get the signal. And, I got beat up a little bit. Oh, no, right? Well, then it turns out that a North Korean ship was caught going through the Panama Canal in reverse. They were leaving, going back to North Korea, and the entire cargo hold was filled with, like, ballistic missiles. Yeah. And it was covered for maybe 3 days, and then it just vanished. And at the time the Panamanians inspected the hold, they found all these ballistic missiles. They're like, what is this? And they didn't even know what it was, and they didn't know what to do about it. So we had to send down our own people to figure out what these were. And they were like medium-range ballistic missiles. And they were shocked because they're just in the cargo hold of this. They weren't even particularly well hidden. They were just in the cargo hold of this North Korean ship. Well, if you look at the timing and how long it took that ship to get to Cuba and back, right, that the timing was right, that that signal had been sent as it was closing in on Panama going in. and it was sending orders to that ship, and then they caught the ship coming out. So that was extremely interesting to me, because it was a situation where, everything lined up and there was proof positive that what I had thought was true.
Yeah, I remember seeing the photographs of the cargo hold.
Oh, yeah, huge shipping containers of missiles.
Just missiles, sitting in the ship. Yeah, I totally remember that. I used to live down there. I lived in Panama. Yeah. And it was fascinating to see commerce rolling through the locks, and where we lived down there, we lived on the Pacific side, and I could see all of the ships docked out there waiting to go through the canal. So they're like in it's like a holding lot, and just out there on the horizon, just dozens and dozens of when I say dozens, picture that huge freighters just sitting out there. And I would watch them all day long, just come in and out of the canal, and I would watch all of the ships. And there was a lot of defensive stuff going through there, too, as well. The United States Navy and submarines. I would sit out there at my house and look out and watch watch a nuclear submarine go rolling by with all the sailors standing out on the top of the submarine, and just watch it cruise completely silent. But and they were much bigger than what you would ever picture in your own mind's eye. They were huge. But anyway, watching all of this activity roll in and out, and I thought to myself all the time, what is secret? What is on these? What is on there that we don't know about? Because there's so much traffic. There's so much of it. There's no way when you see these freighters with the shipping containers stacked up on the decks, 3, 4, 5 high, by I don't know how many deep and long. There's thousands of them. And are they opening up every single one and looking at them? And I would think to myself as a kid, no, what is on these boats? And they just go in and out, and there's just no way that they could search every one. And the fact that they did that one North Korean boat was pretty fascinating to me. Yeah, I completely swallowed up that whole story. So that was it. That was a number station talking to a North Korean vessel.
Well, what was interesting is it was a number station in a burst transmission, an encrypted burst transmission, in the same sequence.
And when they pick those signals up, it's because they bounce off of land, right, and the ocean, and they're able to go around the world, right?
Yeah, they bounce it off the upper atmosphere. And it kind of bounces around.
Right.
Yeah. Most hams can explain a skip signal better than I can.
Yeah, right. Well, neither can I. Well, then you had that story about the Malibu base and the ham signal, or the radio signals that were coming out of that. Do you remember that?
I do. And then there was the discovery of the cave over off Catalina. There's a bunch of weird stuff that's been taking place down there.
Yeah, well, when we originally broke the story here on Fade to Black about the Malibu base, leading up to that whole craziness that turned out to be the Malibu underwater base, when we first started looking at that, leading up to that on this show, I had so many different guests on talking about, Preston Dennett comes to mind right away, but different guests that were on the show, Bill Burns, talking about the UFO activity off of Malibu and Catalina and Marina Del Rey and how significant it was to ufology. And it's going on right here in Southern California, almost on a daily basis. There's something seen out there. Topanga Canyon, this activity has been going on for a long time. And then boom, we find this, base right there. It was pretty interesting event for 2014. We'll still get to the bottom of it. We're gonna get out there, and I've been talking about it all year, planning this trip to go out there, and we're very close to shooting some stuff under the water and see if we can put that thing to bed finally and find out what it is. Go ahead.
Well, the other thing you have to remember is that you're going to see a lot of really strange stuff down there anyway, because you've got all Edwards, and you've got a lot of space defense stuff going on down there.
Vandenberg,
right? Vandenberg, Plant 42. There's the what's the name of that valley? You get to it when you're going over the grapevine.
Oh yeah, well, exactly. And Steve Murillo was man. Now that's just escaped my brain too. But Steve Murillo talked about that, him and Alex Mastretta, a couple of times, about going out there and talking to the residents out there about that activity too as well. And that's not too far from where we are. You know, the 5 freeways right here, and the grapevine is right there. And that activity going on right here in Southern California again. It's just another piece to the puzzle. It just keeps adding up here. Southern California is a freaky place anyway, but to have all of this activity, it goes on all the time. Yeah, it is very strange.
I wish I could remember the name of that valley, but it's just filled with defense contractors. It's like Grumman, Lockheed. They all have, the Skunk Works is out there. I mean,
well, you're talking about Mojave.
No, there's a valley. I'll remember it.
Okay.
It's, it'll.
Well, the valley that you're talking about, a Simi Valley.
No.
Simi's where Hughes had all of their stuff too, as well. All of their missile laboratories and research went on in Simi Valley too, as well.
But in one case, we saw. Well, I got reported to me by like 4 different people, this bizarre looking UFO that flew at very high altitude across Northern California going south. And I was able to line that up with another set of sightings in Southern California of a similar object. And if you draw a line, the trajectory, the heading, not trajectory, the heading of the object as it's going down the length of California, it was like right on to Edwards.
Oh, somebody Brian Anderson just texted in Antelope Valley.
Antelope Valley, that's it.
Yeah.
I wanted to say it was Deer Valley, but no, it's
Antelope Valley, which is, that's that whole area right there going out to the Mojave Desert. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Antelope Valley, which again, from where I'm sitting right now is about, I could probably get there in 20 minutes. No, that's a stretch. Okay, 25.
Well, it's LA traffic. Right?
Yeah, 25 minutes. Yeah, it's right here, and everything is right out there. Also, who is out there is Virgin Galactic.
Oh, right.
Yeah, absolutely. I took pictures next to Spaceship One day. I got led out onto the tarmac and went out there and touched it. It was pretty trippy. I need to post those pictures one day. That's a pretty fascinating thing. I was just looking here. Hold on. Anyway, are you on Twitter?
I am.
Okay, what's your Twitter handle?
It's O.R. Phillips.
O.R. Phillips. At O.R. Phillips?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody in Twitter, at O.R. Phillips. Bomb Olav right now. You're going to see what goes on here in Twitter every single night. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I better log in then.
Now, one of my favorite subjects is the secret space program, both versions of it, because there's 2. You have, in my opinion, you have the Peter Levenda secret space program, and the affiliation with the Nazis and Werner von Braun and how it was tied into other things. And then you have the secret space program version 2, which is we've got stuff flying all over out there right now and occupying different, planets and the moon and Mars and so forth, and maybe possibly other star systems. And then how that ties into the breakaway civilization. Now, what I find strange is this. I think the theory of the breakaway civilization is, as crazy as it sounds, is a doable situation. And it's something that isn't talked about. It's not Alternative 3, all of that. Now, I don't know how many times you've seen Alternative 3. How many times have you seen it?
Several hundred.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. And it is something that should be, it should be on everybody's to-do list. You've got to go and watch that program because it's a real eye-opener. And it was done in the 60s. And that's the crazy part, too, as well. But it's something that isn't talked about a lot. So I'm going to give you a stage right here really quick. What is, for our audience, most know, but you're an expert, what is the breakaway civilization? And when did the theory of the breakaway start to take hold?
Well, to do them in reverse order, I think the breakaway, the theories of the breakaway civilization, I think it started probably in the late 80s. There are Dr. Frank Stranges, he published a book about Nazi UFOs, and I think that really the genesis of it is within the Nazi UFOs, right? That's where because within the discussion of Nazi UFOs, you have the whole Base 211 mythos and the Arctic, whether it's the Arctic or Antarctic bases and other secret bases that were scattered around. There are actually a couple that were in the Canadian Arctic. So I think that's really the genesis of it. As far as what it is, the breakaway civilization, I think at its root, I think there are probably more than two versions, but I think the main one is that this notion that something is going wrong, right? And that's brought about through Alternative 3, that there's something is going wrong, and the breakaway civilization is attempting to leave, right? For I don't know, to save their own asses or whatever their logic is. They're taking off and going. If you believe Alternative 3, they're going to Mars. But at the same time, I think you have competing interests within the secret space program kind of mythos, right? That I think what you have is a international global operation. And, when I wrote the book, I provided some evidence of that it is global in nature. And I think that most of the developed world is pitching in to build this thing out. But I think you also have an element of it that goes back to the Germans. That I think the Germans, when they perfected's a strong word, but I think when they made operational the propulsion system, the Bell, that they left. I think they left, and maybe they went to Venus or somewhere else.
And when we talk about again, it's mentioned so much. We're talking about the leading scientists, physicists. Right. Everybody that's important in the world. They know that either something is about to happen, maybe they've caused something is on, or we're at a point of no return here on this planet, and there's no reason to stay here anymore. So suddenly everybody is disappearing, and they are going somewhere else. Anybody that has a brain.
And what was interesting is I interviewed Guy McPherson. He's professor emeritus from Arizona State University, and he's done a lot of research in rapid climate change. And he, according to his research, he says that within the next 20 years that we're going to face an extinction event. And he's very, very resolute in that. But if you think about that for a minute, right, that in the next 20, 50 years, even 100 years, if we're going to face some sort of massive climactic collapse or, economic or industrial collapse, then, the best scenario is to get out, is to leave. But at the same time, while you've got all these people that are preparing to leave, and I think if you sit out at Edwards and if you've got a good vantage point and you're watching the runways, and you're watching Vandenberg, I think you could see some very interesting things flying in and out of there, because space planes and other things, because I think that it is an active operation. At the same time, you have the Gary McKinnon story, and that strikes more of like some sort of a defense fleet to shoot down UFOs, right? Well, that plays into the zone of the Nazi UFOs, that the Nazis basically broke away themselves. And if you, with that, what makes that particularly interesting is that if you go back to the 50s, there's a lot of discussion that seems to indicate that they took off and they went somewhere, and that they come back at certain intervals to do things. So some of the UFOs that we see may actually be German in origin.
Why do you think, and I'm glad you brought up Gary McKinnon, because when he said the things that he said, which were, they weren't part of UFO lore, not a real part of it, in that he was naming names and right. the name, the organization, ranks, officers and what they were doing. It was never really denied. It wasn't like the United States stepped forward and said that everything that he just said is crazy. It's not. There wasn't even any deniability there. They just threw charges at him and tried to arrest him.
And massive charges. I mean, the number of charges that they filed against him. You look at somebody like Kevin Mitnick. Kevin Mitnick hacked into NASA and all kinds of places. And he went to prison for a while, and then he came out, and now he's a security consultant.
Right.
Gary McKinnon, the level of charges that he didn't do anything. I would argue he didn't do anything worse than what Mitnick did. But McKinnon, they wanted to send him to Guantanamo.
You're right.
I mean, they wanted to bury him. And what's also interesting about McKinnon is that if you look at what he was talking about, a lot of the things that he went on and on about were kind of like the leftovers of logistics that he was talking about, the names of ships and manifests, cargoes, and things like that. And we live in a very bureaucratic society. That a lot of us have jobs, and in your job you see bills of materials and logistics reports and things come across your desk, and it's kind of just garbage, so you just kind of crumple it up and chuck it in the recycle bin. You don't really worry about it. You're not worrying about like where you would be more secure about troop movements and the capabilities of things, and that's not what he found. He found manifests and cargo lists and movement orders, like moving people around, and it's just all this kind of like low level kind of logistical garbage. And what's interesting is that if you really want to find a conspiracy, right, you have to look for the low level logistical garbage, because that's the stuff that nobody cares about. That's exactly what he found.
That's right. And the other aspect was when they talked about the damage that he had done, and those were part of the charges that were brought down on him, and $500,000 worth of damage. All he did was find out which computers hadn't changed their passwords on the admin level. And so it had the stock password installed, and he was able to get into somebody's computer that nobody changed the password on. That's all he did. He didn't do any damage. Everything that they did was trumped up charges, but it allowed him free access to snoop around on somebody's computer. And when he had said it was almost, I want to say, childlike in his fascination, in that he was just looking for UFOs. That was his search term, UFO. And he wanted to see what he could find. That was it. It wasn't anything malicious. He was just curious. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, yeah. And what's interesting about what he was saying is that the things that he was talking about, then you've got Captain K who comes out and says, okay, well, I was stationed on Mars for 20 years. And a lot of the things that he talks about, when you listen to K being interviewed, that he's very he's very specific. He says, look, I know about these things. I know about this base because I was there. I know about this ship because I was there. I don't know about anything else.
Right.
You can ask me the names of all the ships. I don't know, but I know this one because I was on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, McKinnon, he just wanted to find out UFO stuff, and apparently he did.
When
it's just go ahead.
When he, this is why I believe him. Well, I do believe him, but when he said that he was looking because he had a dial-up modem, right? He's at his mom's house or something. He's got a dial-up modem, and he's watching this picture download, pixel by pixel, and he's looking at this giant ship that is obviously in Earth's orbit, and then he lost control of his mouse, right? And it's exactly how it would go down. Some tech is walking through NASA, and he's looking at this computer that's not supposed to be on, and he's watching somebody that's remotely controlling it, and he jumps on and takes over the computer. It's not some, and my point is, it's not some crazy story. It's not some nutty, crazy, exaggerated story. It's a very simple story, exactly how it probably went down. And he's not taking it somewhere else. It's a very simple story. And that's why I believe everything that Gary's got to say. I think he saw what he saw.
I do too. And the other thing beyond just the simplicity of what he talks about is also the fact that they attempted to bury him. I mean, they wanted to bury him. And why would you go after him so hard? I mean, Mitnick did much more damage. Why? I understand the concept of trying to make a example out of him, but I mean, really, these are my tax dollars at work.
Right. What's the best evidence that you could put forward for the breakaway civilization?
I think Mitnick is Mitnick. I think McKinnon is part of it. I think also one of the interesting things on the Nazi end, there's a lot of evidence, that's very interesting. But I think also a lot of the aircraft that are being seen that are labeled as UFOs, they conform to a triangular kind of shape, and the movements, they're very earthly. And I go back to, there was an article back in the 70s in a magazine called Saga, and I forget who wrote it, but he compared the iconography that's seen on UFOs, and when he actually plotted it out, here are these UFOs from Mars or Saturn or Jupiter or wherever, Zeta Reticuli, and they have Roman numerals on them, and they have a Roman alphabet. It's like one of them said like UN and then a 4-digit number. Another one said US and a 4-digit number. Another one said, like USSR and a 4-digit number. It's like, there's all these little elements that build up. But the most striking thing to me, personally, was, I watched Alternative 3 so many times that I became convinced that if it's real, you should be able to find it. And if you look at Alternative 3, every step of the way, right, all the alternatives, they exist. There's evidence for each one of the alternatives to exist.
You know what? List them for us right now.
Well, sure. The alternative one, there are 3. Well, I would argue there are actually a few more than 3, but the 3 base ones is alternative 1. They were going to try to detonate a nuclear weapon at high altitude to vent the greenhouse gases into space. That actually conforms to something called Project Argus, and it was carried out in the late 50s. It was the highest altitude nuclear detonation ever. Normally, it would take. They sent an entire fleet to the South Atlantic to set this thing off, and normally it'd take like a year to 2 years to plan something like this. They did it in 6 months. They had some of the most sophisticated radar and telemetry systems on the Earth on these ships. So they fire it, and supposedly it failed. Well, in reality, if that was alternative 1, it definitely failed. It proved the Christophilus effect, where they tried to create a artificial Van Allen radiation belt. They were successful in that, but this idea that they could rip a hole in the atmosphere, that didn't work. Alternative 2 was to build massive underground bunkers, and I think that there's plenty of evidence of that. That they're trying to build bunkers like it's going out of style. And the funny thing is that they're building bunkers on all these COG facilities, continuity of government facilities, for a war that will never come. Military planners know that because of mutually assured destruction, nobody's nuking anybody else. So this continually expanding and building all these huge facilities like Raven Rock, and there's one in Napa, and what does it do? It's just pouring money into concrete, steel reinforced, concrete into the ground. It doesn't have a tangible result, plus the seed vaults. There's something like 6 or 8 functional seed vaults at this point, not just the Nordic seed vault, but there's seed vaults all over the world. Well, if you're pouring these legacy seeds, ungenetically engineered seeds into these seed vaults, it's like, what are you planning for?
Yeah.
And then the third alternative was to actually leave. And I think that with the rise of the secret space program discussions and the research that people like Dolan have done and Farrell and others, there's a lot of evidence that there is something in action. That it's taking place.
And with all of that, I've always looked at it as maybe they were planning on something coming here.
Right.
And something that would end everything here. The seed vault aspect of it, and I'm with you on this, the seed vault aspect, I understand, what do I want to say here? The care and compassion of, just in case,
Right.
all this geoengineering we're doing just goes completely wrong. Well, we'll have a backup and we can start over again. Okay, that seems compassionate and seems like there's forethought there and they're looking for the future. Or they know something and they're planning on something coming in this direction, not necessarily us leaving. What do we need the seed vaults for? Unless we need to start over.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the idea, right? Is that you leave and you come back. Because you can't take the entire population of the earth and move it.
Have you ever seen?
I think, if
have you ever seen a UFO? Something you couldn't explain yourself?
I have.
What'd you see?
I've seen a couple. I saw when I was a little kid. I saw what looks like the Lazar Sportster model hanging at about 25,000 feet above my head.
And was that here in California?
It was. It was here in California. I saw outside of Dixon, California. I was part of a mass UFO sighting, and I saw 8 objects having basically a dogfight at extremely high altitude. And then 2 of them came down, and they're outside of Dixon. There are 2 radio towers. They're probably a good 12, 15 miles apart. And these 2 objects, they were triangular shaped, and they would run back and forth between the towers, and they would roll over. And in the light, I could actually see that they were triangular.
Oh, that's interesting. What year was this?
97. About 97.
Any video? Any pictures?
No.
Of course not.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Now the strangest, and then of course I went to up to Mount Adams. That was unreal. This Seaside Ranch, but
James Gilliland.
Yeah, that.
Oh, you went up there?
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Oh, really? Tell me about it. What was that like?
That was actually really interesting.
What year was this?
That was this year.
Okay.
Yeah, I went up there toward the end of the summer.
How many people? Now you've got me going here. I got 100 questions. How many people were with you?
20.
Okay.
25.
Okay.
We have video of that stuff. Now, one amazing thing that happened to me while I was there, I think I saw on Aurora, test aircraft, and running from east to west, we saw something that was moving across the sky, and this is at night, and there were flashes of light behind it, which conforms to the pulse detonation engine. But yeah, I saw some very weird stuff at extremely high altitude, a lot of which ran east to west, or it was kind of southeast to northwest.
When you say what made you, okay, I understand the exhaust and the pulse side. Was it, I'm just going to say it. Was it hauling balls? I mean, was it ripping fast?
Ripping. The Aurora, it was ripping fast.
And it was going east to west. So it was going from your right to your left?
It was going, from my right to my left. Actually, I had to turn around to see it. So it'd be my left to right. But yeah, right to left.
And was this at night as well?
Yeah, it was at night.
Now, I want to stay on the Aurora. Up at his ranch, James Gilliland, does anything go on during the day?
Not really. You just kind of hang out, walk around. I mean, it's a very soothing place.
But is there any activity during the day? No UFO activity. So everything is at night.
It's at night.
And the Aurora was at night?
It was at night.
Okay,
that's why it was so stunning, because it's these bright flashes as it's moving across the sky.
And how far away was it? And what about altitude wise? Mount Adams is pretty big. It's like 14,000 feet, right?
14,000.
It's 14,000 feet.
It was. Yeah, I was actually facing Mount Adams. It was behind me, so I had to turn around to see it. But it had to be at 60,000, 70,000 feet.
And this was with night vision?
No, I saw it with my eyes.
You saw it with your eyes? Yeah. Did you videotape this?
Oh, yeah, we did.
And are these online?
No, not yet.
Oh, come on, Olav.
I've got 100 gigs of that stuff.
Man, I just want to see 1 gig of it. So you
But
see,
we saw something actually more shocking than that. We were seeing these objects flying from the southwest or southeast to the northwest, and they kept shooting across the sky. And these were high, 70,000 feet. And we were using binoculars to see them, and you could see that it was a kind of a triangular shape. But what was interesting is that when you watched it go across the sky, it looks kind of sort of like a satellite with the naked eye. But when you look, it had a kind of dark shape, right? And it was using adaptive camouflage. So when it would fly past a star, the star would be over it, and then it would project it through to be on the bottom, and it would cause the stars to shake as it went across the sky. It wasn't moving tremendously fast, but it was making the stars shake in its wake. And so we had a very, very powerful spotlight, and we shined the spotlight on it. And what was interesting is that when we illuminated it, that it didn't reflect. Normally, if you shine a spotlight on something or you use a laser pointer, it will reflect. This didn't reflect. It actually absorbed it. And we could see it shunt it around the fuselage.
How
Right?
far away was it? Could you guess?
Oh, I couldn't. It was probably 60,000 feet.
Okay.
70,000 feet, but I couldn't even tell you how far.
So when you're saying that it had a shape, so then I'm imagining, you guys had telescopes, binoculars, and night vision, or just night vision too as well. So when you look at it through the binoculars, that's when you saw the actual shape itself.
Yeah, because the shape was darker than the sky.
Right.
So the sky's never deep black. It's always kind of a lighter black.
Right.
So we could see shape against the sky. And what was interesting is that after we illuminated it, we watched the light kind of be absorbed into the aircraft, and then the aircraft, it had light. It had like a running light, but everything turned off. It became blacker than black, and then it just took off. I mean, it as you said, hauled balls and just disappeared.
Right. And so
did that 5 times.
Coincidence, or do you think it actually saw the spotlight?
I think it detected it.
And was it? I don't want to say the word communication, but do you think it was letting you know that it knew that you knew that it was there?
I think it was probably a standard operating protocol that if the aircraft was painted, meaning that it detected a laser, like a laser pointer or some sort of light hitting it, that it would go into like a more stealth mode. I don't think that it was a message to me per se, because if it was, we did it 5 times. So you would think that the next 4 of them would figure out that we were doing this, and they would just turn it off and streak over my head so I couldn't see it at all. But no, we kept doing it.
Okay, so when you say 5 times, the first one left and then another one appeared?
Correct.
And were they going in the same direction?
Same flight path.
Same general area of the sky?
Yeah. Same everything.
That is crazy.
Yeah, and then I saw another one that was going north to south that was weaving, but it wasn't like a tight weave. It wasn't like a
zigzag.
Yeah, it wasn't a zigzag. It was a rounded weave, but it was weaving.
Same.
Like somebody was up there flying it, going, testing something, going, okay, I got to make these turns.
Interesting. Is there an Air Force base up there?
There is, but I don't remember the name of it offhand. But I don't think these came from there. They were too high in altitude.
Well, that's my next question. So you're looking at these. What did you think? Are you thinking ET? Or are you thinking from here?
I was thinking Area 51 flying toward the pole.
Interesting. And you said that these were triangular shaped. So was the pointy side of the triangle the direction it was flying in?
Correct. That was the front of the aircraft.
Interesting. Now it's I keep saying interesting because I'm just blown away right now. I'm blown away.
I was blown away too. I was speechless. They were high enough altitude, flying slow enough that I could track it. But, it's still, you spend your whole life investigating this stuff and oh, am I ever going to see an aurora? And then you see an aurora and you're like, oh my God. You just kind of stand there for half an hour going, I just saw an aurora. I just saw an aurora.
No, totally. And from that distance, what's your best guesstimate on the size of these craft?
That's hard. 100 feet?
Yeah, because if it's 60,000 feet away and you can see the shape of it, that means it's big.
Yeah, it was like a quarter of an inch to me.
A quarter of an inch at 60,000 feet?
Yeah, maybe an eighth of an inch.
Wow, I need to break out my math.
But you see, this is why, you asked me for the best evidence of a secret space program. I can give you a bunch of historic stuff from the 50s that'll blow your mind. But if you want stuff today, seeing these objects flying around up there, these things are big. We're talking like, the size of a 737. We're not talking little fighter planes. These things are enormous. They're not, they're bigger than the SR-71. I wouldn't be able to see an SR-71 at that altitude.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. These are like the size of a 737.
Interesting. And now, did this go on? How many nights were you up there?
I was up there for 2 nights.
Okay, so this was all, I'm assuming, was your first night?
This was the first night. The second night wasn't quite as exotic, but we still saw weird stuff. But it wasn't as explosive.
Were you guys? Were you? I'm laughing with you. Were you guys doing any of the Stephen Greer trying to attract ET stuff, or this stuff was just showing up?
Well, I think we were away from the main group, and I think there was some intention stuff going on. I do want to try the C5 protocol. I have a friend who owns a mountain, and I've been lobbying to go to the top of his mountain when the snow melts to go up there and to attempt it, because where his mountain is, there are no people. So, and we have an unobstructed view from horizon to horizon. So, I do want to try it. I don't know. I'm a nuts and bolts person. I tend to steer away from the spiritualism aspect of it. So, I don't know how much intention will buy you, because like on the second night, they were saying, what was it? There's a term that they were using, effectively light it up or boost or something like that.
Right.
And they'd be all screaming, boost, boost, boost. And then the thing would light up and they go, okay, you did it. No, to me, it's like, well, if I yell boost and then it does something, okay, I buy that. But, if you yell it 16 times and then it doesn't, well, maybe your intention isn't working.
Right. Well, Steve Murillo told me the story one time. Now, I know he did it off the air. I don't know if he did it on the air, but where he was out in the desert with a group of people, and the leader of the group, I think there was a dozen of them out there, pointed to the sky and said, "There it is. It just arrived." And Steve said he looked up and there was this star planet type of, light up in the sky sitting there. And he didn't really notice it. He didn't know if it had just appeared or not, but it was there when this guy pointed up to the sky. But then they took out, I think it was a laser pointer, and they clicked it 3 times at this object in the sky. And he said, on cue, that thing blinked 3 times back. And he said it freaked him out. And so then this star, this object up in the sky, they did it constantly. They would do 4 clicks. It would blink back 4 times. They would do 2 clicks, and it would click back twice. And he said he didn't buy into any of that until he saw it with his own 2 eyes. So
yeah, but is that intention, or is that it responding to you?
Yeah,
those are 2 different things, right?
It is. It is. I haven't had it happen. I have not done it myself.
Go to C-SETI.
Right.
Go to C-SETI. You will see stuff.
You want to take some phone calls? Oh, I just disconnected. Hang on. Oh, I didn't just do that. Let me get Olav back on. He's on hold. I just did it. Hang on, everybody. You know what? Let me do this, and I'm gonna click. I can't believe I just did that. I did it in real time, live radio. You gotta love it. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Bespoke radio for the massive. Sorry about that, Olav. Are you there?
Problem.
Okay. What I meant to say was you want to take some phone calls, and as I did that, I disconnected. You want to take some calls? I've got a bunch of calls lined up.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go to the first one. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black with Olav Phillips.
Oh, hello. You disconnected both of us. It's Dino.
Hey, Dino. How are you tonight?
Hi. Hey, hello, Olav. Happy to have you back, Jimmy. Olav, I'm very excited to talk to you. Can you just give me 1 second here? Yabba dabba doo to Sir Bear. And he's a Capricorn, too, so we all know that this is real stuff.
Okay. Okay, good enough.
One of our listeners, no BS. Okay, so Olav, I've not heard about you, but you are now going to be famous on this program even more than you were.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Like you, I get into these subjects more nuts and bolts. Not to say that the intention you guys were talking about or that spiritual side of it doesn't work. I'm not that egotistical, and I resisted calling in when MB was on, even though I was being taunted by the Fadernauts. But that aside, you have seen these things, right? Up there, Dixon, California can get pretty dark. I used to have a cousin up there I'd visit. I live up kind of high now. Not being a contactee, I would like to ask you, again, could you go deeper into what Gary McKinnon saw, whether these, you believe, what percentage maybe of these craft that you're seeing are ours, and what percentage, if you do believe, are the others? You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, because you seem very practical.
I try to be practical. I mean, it's a very impractical subject. I think, I think that what Gary McKinnon saw, he saw manifests cargo. He saw movement orders of people back and forth between the ships. He saw
photographs, of course. He had the famous file folder labeled UFO images.
And actually, he saw one where that strikes me kind of interesting, that it was a photo of the moon and there was an object. I think it was like a cigar-shaped UFO. And then he saw it after it was airbrushed. So he actually saw the airbrushing process, so to speak.
Didn't he have wasn't there two folders, a before and after?
Yeah, there was like a before and after. And so he talks about some of those in pretty specifically. As far as the... It's a hard question to say what percentage. I'm a nuts and bolts guy. I tend to lean toward the J. Allen Hynek, Jacques Vallée kind of philosophy on it, where it's about 90% is our stuff and then about 10% is theirs.
Okay, well, the reason I asked you that is, like, just a couple of nights ago, I'm lucky I don't have to go into work this week, and I was out and I happened to see two pieces of what I think were space junk, and now we're hearing about this meteor in Southern California, and I'm wondering how much of this stuff that's up there falls and how much of it is black budget stuff, that maybe something malfunctions and it's actually burning up, and they go, oh, it's just a meteorite, nothing to see here,
Yeah, with a nuclear reactor on board.
Exactly.
Right.
Or some kind of alternative propulsion system that they're happy to have burn up because they don't want any evidence left.
And absolutely right, Dino. Thank you for the call, my brother.
Okay, be aware, be vigilant, and seek for the truth.
Thank you, Dino.
No.
All right, let's go straight to the next call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Say hi to Olav.
Okay. Let me lower my volume here.
Okay.
Cool. What's up, Olav?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, not bad. Hey, actually, I've been trying to call in because I got some interesting information about that AirAsia flight that I think might be a little mind freaky.
Okay, what you got?
Well, I actually flew to Surabaya. I taught English there. I started in 2011, and if I had allowed my contract to run its full course, then I believe I would have ended up on that flight on my way back home.
Really?
As luck would have it, I decided to terminate my contract before it ran its full course. So, I don't know if you guys believe in providence or fate or anything like that, but
I think we all do. I think we all do.
That blew me away when I compared the schedules of the end of my contract and the date of that flight and everything. Because that flight flew out of Surabaya to Singapore on the following day after my contract expired.
Wow, that's what was your name again?
My name's Elias.
Hi, Elias. How you doing? I'm going to get back to the Malaysian stuff with Olav
after
your phone call. I cannot have Olav on the show and not talk about that. But do you have a question for Olav real quick?
Not exactly a question, but there are two other bits of information that I think you might think are handy, just so that there's no misconceptions, sent out to the listeners.
Okay, go ahead.
And the first one is that it wasn't Malaysia, it was Indonesia that the flight flew out of.
That is correct.
It was from Indonesia to Singapore. And the other bit of information that I think might come in handy is that I've been on those little tiny Airbuses that commute between Indonesia and Surabaya. And I believe your previous guest, what's his name?
Mike Barra.
Mike. He said that all airplanes are built really sturdy. But this particular flight, AirAsia, that commutes between Surabaya and Singapore, it's a one aisle plane, and they're really, really small. And I've been on those before. I've done that commute between Surabaya and Indonesia, and they tend to be proverbial leaves in the wind. Like any little bit of turbulence or draft, and you really feel it. So they're not as sturdy as he.
Yeah, I can understand that, and thank you for the call, Elias. I really appreciate that. And one of the things that certainly the media has been putting forth, and Olav, I'd like your input on this, is that they're used to dealing with these crazy thunderstorms down there all the time. And so if these planes, like Elias is just saying, if they're not that sturdy or whatever, then we would have plane crashes down there all the time, and we don't. And this is the first crash for Asia Air. I think what's their record? 10 years, 12 years? This is their first.
Yeah.
So it's not like, and I understand what you're saying, Elias, but on the other hand, they're used to dealing with these pilots down there and driving through these storms. So what would have been different on this flight than any other flight? They should have known what to do going in and been able to deal with it. And that I think is Mike's point. But thank you for the call, Elias. First time caller, man. Call back anytime, brother.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to get to Malaysia. Let's just keep going through the calls. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Olav. Who's calling?
Hello, this is Bear.
Happy birthday, Bear. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Hey, I have a kind of a far out theory. I'm wondering if these disappearing airplanes, could be like being GPS manipulated.
Exactly right, Bear. As always.
And And I'm also wondering if this is all a big distraction with the North Korean so-called hacking, which I don't think they got the power to do because I think they only got like 4 mainframe servers.
Yeah, kind of.
Country. And then you have this right on top of it. So I'm just wondering, okay, all the media is going that way. What's going on the other way?
Exactly.
You know, like it's just a big distraction on covering something else that's going on.
Thank you so much, Barry. You're the bright spot in my day.
I appreciate that, bro. And you have a good one. And say hi to everybody in the Fade or Not community there.
Thank you, Bear.
I do appreciate all the good wishes. Be well, be safe, and be cautious.
All the best, Bear, brother. You know, Olav, he brings up a really good point, doesn't he? It seems like every time something like, North Korea, let's go invade North Korea, they, whatever, some big media event, it gets immediately, if you need to cover something up, let's get something else going. And this happened right on top of the other one. And now, North Korea is not in the headlines anymore. Does that feel strange to you?
It does. I mean, a lot of times, well, I mean, first of all, I'm a conspiracy writer, right? So I'm gonna jump to that conclusion. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times I think that when these big events happen, whether it's Malaysia Air, Asia Air, whatever, I think when these big events happen that are a little odd, shall we say, that I think it's incumbent upon all of us to look at what else is going on in the world. Are there when this happened, and I haven't had a chance yet to do this, but when this happened, what else was happening? Because a lot of times, these events happen and there's economic problems. Like, somebody's going to get kicked out of the EU, right? The Greeks are afraid they're about to be kicked out of the EU, and the Russian economy is tanking. Meanwhile, we're all distracted because a plane disappeared. And as far as the aircraft, I actually looked it up. Apparently, they use an Airbus A320, which is not a piddly aircraft.
No.
That's a very well-made plane, and the entire Air Asia fleet has been upgraded to the A320, which is a very sophisticated plane. But I would also say that it's also all completely electronic, that it's completely computer controlled. So, they're supposed to be able to survive things like lightning strikes, but if it did get hit by lightning and something happened to the onboard computer system, it would disappear. So
you don't think there would be any way for the pilots to take manual control of the airplane?
The problem is that with a large commercial airliner, that if you lose full electrical power, right, and you're running on pure hydraulics, that plane is extremely heavy, and trying to glide that plane is a fool's errand. That it's just
isn't there a certain amount? I don't care if it's 30 seconds, okay, but wouldn't there be a certain amount of battery power in the plane to keep enough systems alive to at least glide and maybe restart the engines?
Well, that's actually a very interesting point, that in the A320 and in most modern aircraft, that there's a turbine that's manually dropped out of the bottom of the aircraft in that kind of an emergency situation where if they lose electrical power, there is a battery that they can run the avionics with for a couple minutes, and then this turbine drops out of the bottom of the plane, and the turbine rotation actually can power just enough of the aircraft so that they can make a controlled descent, or they can try to restart the engines.
That's exactly my point. Why didn't any of that happen? And you would think
it's an electromechanical device. But that being said, the point about the GPS, people don't realize this, but the GPS network is actually owned by the U.S. military. So.
Yeah, okay. Quit being a downer. Thanks, Olav. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Olav. Who's calling?
This is Tony. How's it going?
Hi, Tony. How are you tonight, sir? Say hi to Olav.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good. It's pretty interesting. I've had several UFO sightings that I could definitely say, for matters of fact, were probably either from a breakaway of civilization, a top secret covert project, and or extraterrestrials. I've seen the triangle, but it was in 1986, and for all intents and purposes, it looked like a space plane. It looked like something that would traverse the atmosphere. I saw it close up. It was going so slow it should have fallen out of the sky, so it was under some kind of, some kind of propulsion, to keep it in the air without having to fly. And then I've seen orbs. I saw my first, silver disc type UFOs in 1997. And I've actually seen the boomerang that people have described. Now, I think the orbs are a form of kind of like periscopic device used by intelligent beings or covert beings, humanoids. And I believe there's probably about 3 breakaway civilizations. I don't know if you go along those lines or not, but I believe that, there's probably around 3. And there's one that came around the industrial age and a couple more way further back that were kind of, given the rights to parties, so to speak, and hold an even higher qualification of technology. What do you think about that?
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you.
Well, the orbs, I think they might be drones. That seems to be kind of where you were going with that. I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
The timing of when you saw the triangle, that's actually interesting because in the 80s, the late 80s and the early 90s, there were a lot of triangles being seen all around the world, especially in like England and parts of Europe. And these things flew very slowly, and they would actually fly along freeways. And which is actually a good idea if you think about it, right? Because if you follow a freeway, you're going to go to a large city. But yeah, they seem to have some sort of anti-gravity system within them. As far as the breakaway civilizations, the thing I always go back to is that DARPA, conservatively, DARPA is 50 to 60 years ahead of us in the civilian world. And I think that the number is more accurately probably in excess of 100 years. When you have the head of the skunk works, saying things like, not only do I think he said this at Caltech, he said, not only do I have the contract to take ET home, but I've got the technology to do it. These kinds of statements are very provocative, and I think it indicates a level of sophistication that they have that we're not completely aware of. And I think the triangles are space planes.
Well,
Absolutely.
when you look at the YF-12A or you look at the SR-71 and you think about 1958 when those things were put together right here in Burbank, right here at Lockheed, right, Burbank Airport, and they put those things together, and today we still don't have anything to top that. But go back to 1958. That was the most craziest design of an airplane. When you think about everything else that was in the skies back then, where did this thing come out of? Where were the ideas from? I'm not suggesting ET. I'm saying that they have the ability to what they were building now. That was 50 years ago. 50.
Exactly.
And so if that's the case, today, here we are, we're going into 2015 in a couple of days. What is it that they've got now? If the SR-71 was 1958, what are they cranking out today? And that's where the mind gets blown. And you're right about Ben Rich. Ben Rich, when he made that statement, well, we have the technology to take ET home. Well, you know what? I got Ben Rich's book, by the way, Skunk Works. Love it. I believe Ben Rich. I do. What else do you have to go on?
Out of all the people in the world to believe, I believe him.
That's right.
He's in control of it.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. He's the main man.
I over the weekend we had a little dinner party here, and I broke out. I've told the story many times here on the air, and I happened to think about it. I broke out the photograph that I have of my triangle that I photographed back in 95, 96, which was up in Monterey, California. And I hadn't broken out the photograph in a long time, but I broke it out, and Steve Murillo was here from MUFON. Alex Mastretta was here from MUFON. Dr. Andy J. Elias. Do you know Dr. J? He has a radio show, too, called Rome. he was here, and Nurse Nancy was here, and I passed the photograph around on the to the table and let everybody take a peek at it. And it's when you look at it, because it was up so high into the clouds, you look at this and all you can see is this little black triangle. It looks like a dust speck, okay, until you look at it under a jeweler's loop and you take a look. And to me, to my eyes, it looks more like a pyramid than it does a black triangle. It looks really unflyable. Trust me on this. It's a 3D type of picture. Of an object, but what it wasn't doing was flying slow. It was ripping, but then it stopped right in front of us. There was 3-4 of us out on the beach, and then it shot up and went straight out into the atmosphere. And I have this photograph, and I think I'm ready to scan it and like get it out there in the public domain. I've only shown it to a few people over the years.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy picture. And, I was expecting when I passed the picture around to everybody for them to go, whoa! But it's so high up and it's in the clouds, you can just barely see that it's a black triangle of something up in the clouds. But when you jeweler's loop it and take a look at it, that's when your brain wonders why Jimmy owns a jeweler's loop. I'm reading Twitter. I'm a watch collector. So that's why I have a jeweler's loop. I like to look at mechanical watches. Is that strange? That's not strange, is it? It's not weird.
I don't think so.
Okay, just letting everybody know that's why I own a jeweler's loop.
I collect 16mm movies. Is that strange?
No, and so you must have a jeweler's loop, right? Are you looking at frames? Oh, you don't look at frames?
No, I don't look at frames.
Now, let's get back to, and by the way, that opens up the phone lines. We cleared out 5 or 6 calls. You want to call in, 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in, Fade to Black 14, 323-825-5045. Now, Olav, here we are. You're a Conspiracy HQ, by the way, is a great website. Here we have 3. Elias pointed out that the plane took off out of Indonesia. I keep saying Malaysia. Well, what we have to understand is that all 3 planes are from Malaysia. Okay, I think that's the key thing here when we're talking some kind of strange situation here. I'm not one to say conspiracy yet. But now we have 3 incidents in 2014 involving the country of Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur. Where are you right now? Are you putting this together? Does it feel a little strange?
It feels weird. Part of the reason that I think it makes sense from a conspiratorial point of view is that things are not as well regulated in those areas. So if you're going to play fast and loose and you want to engineer an event, I think that would be a good place to do it because you can make things happen. But I haven't really connected all the dots yet. I mean, on the surface of it, it would make sense because if you're going to try to crash a plane in Western Europe, there's a lot more logistically that you would have to do. I think that'd be a lot easier to manufacture an event in somewhere like Malaysia or Indonesia. These places they're stable, but they're stable on a hair. There's a lot of there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of intrigue in these kinds of places. So it would seem to make sense as a place to leverage to engineer an event.
How many events do you have to have? In this case, we have 3. How many do you have to have before you go, okay, stop? There's something going on. Now we have 3 events here. Now, is this when you yell stop? Okay, now somebody needs to start talking.
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard to say because I mean it's kind of contextual. But yeah, I mean, I would say that 3. It goes back to the old adage: once shame on me, twice shame on you.
Right.
I think that if you have two things that are very similar, to me, I know there's a lot of differences between this and the Malaysian air flight that disappeared that nobody's ever been able to find. There are a lot of differences, but because it's in the same geographic region, that really makes you start to wonder if something is going on. But again, if you want to manufacture an event, it would be a good spot to do it.
I'm reading a text here. Anyone else see the black boomerang-shaped airplane that hauls? From Dandy. Have you seen those? I'm going to respond to this tweet really quick. It just caught my eye. Did you see those the triangle craft photographs over Kansas and Texas that surfaced about 2 or 3 months ago?
I did. I actually wrote about it on anomalies.net in Paranoia. What's interesting about them is that they're following a very odd flight path. That they seem to be cruising out from the west, which you would expect. Then they're heading east, and it's almost like they're, in one case, I think it was one over Kansas, that it was taking a dip down, and if you toward Cuba and then off onto Europe. That they seem to be going toward Europe. And what's interesting is that in both those locations where they were seen, that they were at lower altitude and they were flying slower. And there are bases not too far away from both of those locations where they could get midair refueling. So it made a lot of sense. There's also another one that somebody took out of the window on an airplane where one of these triangular aircraft, a smaller one, is flying near the plane and actually dips down into a cloud. That's interesting too.
Why haven't we been able to, since you write for Conspiracy HQ and Anomalies, why haven't we have been able to grab something off of Google Earth and Google Images of something sitting on a runway?
Well, you have. I mean, there are times when photographs have surfaced that are satellite photos that show these objects sitting on runways. But the thing that you have to remember is that, like with Area 51, they know when the satellite passes are coming. And so they know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes before. I think T.D. Barnes kind of laid it all out when we talked to him a long time ago, that the satellite's coming. So like 10 minutes before, you've got to shut everything down and wheel it in, into the structure. Then the satellite passes and then you wheel everything out. So everything has to be done in these like 45-minute blocks between satellite passes.
Right. I want to change gears really quick. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Phone lines are open, 323-825-5045, if you would like to throw a question out to Olav Phillips, our guest tonight. A lot has been, especially lately, with NWO and the take over the world and false flags and wars being started and so forth. And now when we look at, we're in a very envious position right now where we can look back immediately at recent events. And I'm talking about, Libya, Egypt, Iraq, Syria. Certainly you have the Gaza Strip. And you can back up further to that and go to the last couple of Gulf wars going back to 1991. And then you go back to Vietnam and Gulf of Tonkin. And then you can jump back to Cuba, Bay of Pigs, and go to JFK. And it just seems like now we can look at all of these instances of these weird events that precipitate something that happens afterwards, immediately afterwards. Is there something going on here?
Well, I mean, obviously there's something going on, right? I mean, what it is, I don't know that we'll ever know, exactly what's going on. It's hard to see the end game sometimes because you only have slivers of information. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely stuff going on. I think a lot of what we've seen recently is about resources, that these are basically resource wars. That you're fighting for oil, you're fighting, inside the Middle East, Afghanistan. I mean, the Ukraine is interesting because it's one of the larger natural gas pipelines between Russia and Western Europe. So, I think a lot of the more recent stuff is about resources, oil, natural gas, opium, poppies. I mean, a lot of times when these kinds of things happen, that there is some sort of a resource that's being fought for. And in the case of the Middle East, it'll get worse because, I don't know where you stand on the whole peak oil thing, but if you buy into the peak oil strategy, that there is less of it, our demand for it is increasing. So we will seek to control the source, and the source is the Middle East.
Well, when you look at it in those terms, I talk about this all the time on the show. So let's visit that subject. What is fascinating now is everything as far as a conspiracy argument. I'm not playing devil's advocate here. I'm actually opening up another door for this, which is all of the arguments about that with OPEC and Saudi Arabia and F-16s that are sitting there and the deal that we made in 1972 and 1973. All of that now actually isn't in play because now the United States is the leader. We produce more oil than any other country in the world. And our dependency on oil now isn't anywhere near what it was in the 70s and the 80s. Those tides have turned. But what comes into play now is the damage that is being caused to the to Russia, who now their economy is about to seriously go into collapse. And is that a play that is going on there? And are we in cahoots with OPEC to keep production up, keep our production up to the point where we're going to start turning away oil freighters that are coming to the United States because we have too much oil here now. And, when we're looking at oil prices and gas prices drop like we are here, now is this a new play that is happening in the world economy, and are we manipulating that?
Of course. I think that especially with oil, it's always manipulated. I mean, we may be the leader today, but we may not be tomorrow. I mean, it's all about how much of it you have. But I mean, it's definitely it's used as a pawn. I mean, it's a proxy war, right? Economics is a proxy war, just like Vietnam was a proxy war. That we were fighting on behalf of the South Vietnamese. Then the North Vietnamese were fighting. The Russians were fighting on behalf of the North Vietnamese. It was a simulated proxy war for World War III, right? That we have these kind of small scale engagements where we poke each other. In this case, we seek to control the resources, no matter how plentiful or not plentiful. We seek to control it because then we can use it to crash the Venezuelan economy, or we can crash the Russian economy, or we can crash, this economy or that economy. I mean, you can only do that if you have some level of control over the resources. We can only do that to OPEC if we have some leverage to OPEC and say, you know what? You guys are going to take a bath on this, but we want you to do it, or we're going to do X. In the case of this Saudi Arabia, maybe it's, we want you to over pump it, because if you don't, well, then, we're going to back off all the equipment that we store there that you're going to need because your neighbors are unstable and don't like you. It's all manipulated.
Yeah,
everything's manipulated.
Well, and you look at the big picture. If OPEC started to produce less oil, then they're going to have to wait another 6 months or a year for the market to come back. They've lost a lot of money. The only way to keep the money flow going over there, no matter what the price of oil is to keep the production up, because you're selling more oil at a less price, but you're going to have to wait for a 1 or 2 year cycle to come through to have oil prices come back up if you decrease production. But them decreasing production doesn't affect our usage here. It's a weird play that is going on right in front of us.
It is, and it's a very interesting ballet to watch, because the one thing that seems to be coming out of it now is that even the mainstream news is saying, is this the death of Putin's control? That is this what's going to unseat Putin? And what's interesting is that while all this is going on and the Russian economy is sinking, the number of bear bombers that have been running up and down the the East Coast and the West Coast, and out through past our NATO allies through the Baltic and around the pole. Those have been increasing. So while we're crashing their economy, they're definitely taking it back to where it used to be. It was just maybe a year or two ago that Putin announced that he was now flying his bombers out to failsafe again. So he's, it seems like he's trying to reignite the Cold War, because the Cold War, he can make Russia more insular, or the Russian Federation more insular, and without being quote unquote communist, which I would argue they never were, that they can kind of recreate the Warsaw Pact, recreate the heyday of the Soviet Union, where you couldn't take rubles out of the country. They had to stay in the country, right? But he can only stabilize his economy if he seals himself off. And he's not worried about, exterior trade.
Well, and
So
the only way to have influence over there is to pump stupid amounts of money into military, and there's too much ground to make up from where they have, fallen off track. And I'm talking about submarines, Navy, boots on the ground, everything that takes to play in that game.
But that's true of us too, though, right?
Well, the United States has something like the number, you can't pin it down, but let's just pull a raw number out. We have 1,000 military bases around the world. Okay, do you know how many Russia has outside of Russia? 2. Okay,
Yeah.
How many does China have? So they're supporting a military that is much easier to support. But if you're going to do that kind of expansion, it takes money. And if you don't have the money from oil or other natural resources, and we clamp that down, Putin's dream of expansion is very short-lived. You just can't do it.
Right.
You can't.
But he can take it back to where it was before, minus all the breakaway republics that have left. He can take it back to where it was before. Shut down the borders and internalize himself.
Well, you're saying supporting, that would mean taking back Poland, taking back Germany, Czechoslovakia.
No. Right, all that's gone. But what I'm saying is that if he makes his economy internalized, they make more than enough food in Russia to feed themselves. That's not a problem. They pump more than enough oil to take care of themselves. But if they stop playing on the world stage the way that they are, and they go back to the way that they were under the Soviet Union, you're going to have bread lines and all these. You're not going to have BMWs, and you're going to go back to just having Zills and just they'll lose a lot, but they'll stabilize their environment. I think what he's got to do is he's got to go back to the Cold War.
Well, do you think the population there, and this is where I get a little funky internally, because I believe in man. So, and maybe I'm a little naive, but once the population there, and trust me, I have a Russian family here. So once you get away from the old republic that they had, and you give them a taste of the good life, the Western way of living, they're not going to want to give that back up.
No,
I really feel
it's
that.
Dangerous. It's a dangerous gambit. But, the thing about the Cold War is, when I was a kid, where I live outside of San Francisco, it covered with military bases. We had Hamilton, we had Alameda, we had Moffett, we had Treasure Island, Mare Island, Hunters Point. We had the 7th Light Infantry down in Seaside. We had a SAC base in Sacramento. We had a Logistics Command base, Travis. All these bases everywhere, they're all gone. They're all gone now. So if the Cold War starts, right, that restarts, that requires us to pump more money into the military. So it requires us to beef ourselves up to be able to fight them. So in general, war is good for the economy. It saved us in a recession. If I remember correctly, we were in a recession coming out of World War II. Then you go into the problems in Korea, and that reignited things. And having the Cold War, that reignited things. So war is big business. War is good business. So if we have a Cold War, it's good for him too.
Are you writing about about the interview and North Korea right now?
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. When I write, it's a kind of a weird process that, a lot of times I have an idea in my head of what I want to write, and it stays in my head until I can actually hear the entire article. It becomes crazy at times because I'll repeat it to myself, and I can actually hear the entire article in my head, and then it's like I've got to get it out. So,
well, because
I want to.
When I first heard about the hack, the Sony hack, when I first started to hear about that, something didn't smell right there.
No.
That smelled a little funky. And then when the FBI came out and said, "Oh, it's definitely North Korea," I just thought, no, it's not North Korea. I just felt that whole, I hate to say false flag, but I felt something coming, this accusation. And the way that, the limited way that North Korea reacted, I also felt it in my bones. It was a gut reaction that North Korea had absolutely nothing to do with this.
Probably not. I mean, again, while we're worrying about the interview, which has made $15 million so far in rental sales on YouTube.
Right.
Right. While we're worrying about the interview, we're not thinking about is the Russian government going to be completely destabilized? And as you pointed out, maybe it's going to bring about another civil war over there. We're not thinking about what's going on in other places. We're not thinking about who's doing what to who, where, why, and when. We're worried about, we turns out the head of Sony's kind of a jerk,
Right.
Okay. Do I really care? Not really. But the way that my philosophy professor always used to put it is that, 90% of the world is okay with the 6-pack and the 49ers, that they don't, it's the allegory of the cave, that they're like shadows on the wall, that they don't really care about what's going on in a larger frame of reference. So, when Sony gets hacked, it's good PR for the movie. Now they're gonna sell that movie like crazy, whether it sucks or not, because everybody's gonna want to see why Sony got hacked, right? And it creates political intrigue for Sony, and again, just like the airplane, it makes us not look at what else is going on. Things are happening, things are going on, but we don't see them because we're too busy worrying about where planes are. Then we're worried about Sony getting hacked, or we're worried about what Lindsay Lohan is doing this week.
Have you seen the interview?
I have not.
Oh, you got to check it out.
Yeah,
it's actually pretty dang good.
They did an End of the World movie, and it was awesome. So.
Oh yeah. James Franco. Yeah.
James Franco. Yeah.
Let's grab another call before the end of the show. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
I hope you won't mind. It's Dino calling back on a different subject.
Okay, Dino.
What you're talking about right now, Olaf, that's the thing. The fact that if you're going to talk to people about conspiracy and you say, well, they're having us do this and they're having us do that, the whole point here is that there are so many distractions, whether it's a 6-pack and the 49ers game, or whether it's what's going on between the different countries. Who is pulling the strings? Is it the old Nazis? The underground bases that are all around the world? What are they really used for? And can we keep to the fact of who are they? Are there different breakaway societies that are giving the marching orders, or is it just the Rothschilds? Is it only economic, or is there other alien influence cohorting with humans?
Well, I think there are definitely at least two breakaway civilizations, right? That there's one that's an amalgamation, because all these things are not real. I mean, we're not enemies with Russia. We're not enemies with China. We're as dependent on them as they are on us. So, but I think all of these industrialized countries are all chipping in to build this breakaway civilization to get their elite out of here. Right. And I think the second one is the Nazis. And I can give you evidence that the Nazis do exist and they're not here.
Thank you, Dino.
Okay. Talk to you tomorrow. Thanks,
You
Olav.
got it.
Keep talking about it.
I will.
Well, yeah, I'm going to ask part of his question, part of his phone call again directly. Who is when Barack Obama swears in office and he goes into the Oval Office and he sits down at the desk and the phone rings and somebody's telling him, he's not really the boss. This is who is that? That's what Dino's asking. Who is the guy making that phone call? Who's pulling those strings for Putin and Obama?
Well, I think that names. I don't know. They have many names. I think it's the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. I think that their family lineages that go back 1,000 years that have always been in control. They have all the money. I mean, you look at the Queen of England. I used to go out to the Channel Islands for work, and the Channel Islands between England and France are owned by the Queen of England. So I think a lot of the people in the aristocracy, are a part of this. I think they're part of it. I think that you look at the people who are rich beyond measure. I mean, people who are just insanely rich that they just couldn't make any more money. The money was meaningless. But I think a lot of it is the aristocracy.
What about I always equate, and I just hate to do this because so many other researchers out there make the same correlation. But I just look at the Rothschild family and the controlling of the banks and the way that they're established on every continent.
And they're plugged into everybody else.
Plugged into, they own everything, including the mass media. Yeah, when you look at when I found out, and I could be dead wrong on this, but I had read this from I confirmed it from more than one source that the Rothschilds own Reuters, who bought AP. Now that's where everything is fed. Everything is fed off of, I should say, and that's a frightening conclusion to come to, isn't it?
If Reuters publishes it or AP publishes it, then it's the word of God.
That's right.
If I got a message put out on the Reuters Twitter saying that the sun was about to explode, you'd see CNN, Al Jazeera, the BBC, everybody else would all say, "Oh, we just got a Reuters update that the sun's about to explode." I mean, they have that much control.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, could it be? Could the mysterious, the Bilderbergers and the NWO and
layers.
Yeah. Could it all be at the top? Could it just really just be as simple as just the Rothschilds and money?
I think it is as simple as money, but I don't think it's just the Rothschilds. I think the aristocracy has a lot to do with it because a lot of these families have been in power for centuries. I mean, they've built up their power over centuries. You look at England. If you try to buy land in England, a lot of times you have to buy what's called a leasehold because some aristocratic family still owns the land and they won't give you the land. You buy the house and you rent the land for 99 years. But, in America, we buy the land. Like I own the land that I'm sitting on. It's mine. But like in England and in Germany and these other places, France, the aristocracy still owns most of the country. So, you have a freehold or a leasehold. A freehold, the land is yours free and clear, or leasehold, which is a lot of it, it's owned by the aristocracy.
Well, and one other thing I want to kind of leave on this is when Obama made the big announcement about Cuba last week. That was one thing. Okay, it sounds like it was Obama's decision, and he just thought about this for a while. He lost sleep over it, and he woke up in the morning and said, "Michelle, check this out. I'm gonna go call Raul Castro real quick." Okay, that's the way it felt, and then you find out that it was a Vatican play. That it was the Vatican that was involved for the last year and a half. So is the Vatican that much of a player where they can actually influence heads of state like that in such a direct manner?
Well, the Vatican is a massive economic engine. I mean, they own copious amounts of land. The Vatican even financed Gladio, which was, basically like a private army for NATO. The Vatican moved their people around. They financed, false flag operations. The Vatican's been in this for centuries. They've been manipulating the aristocracy for centuries. In fact, there are members of the aristocracy that are priests in the Vatican. See, it's all tied together. But these power systems go back 1,000 years in some cases. That's why I think it's them, ultimately.
Interesting. And why is it always his name is freezing. The King of Denmark. What's his name?
I can't remember right now.
He started Bilderbergers.
Yeah, and he was a Nazi.
And, well, man, why do you got to say that so much? It's funny. I'm so uncomfortable with the word Nazi. Like all of us are.
He's a nationalist socialist.
It's insane to me how these same names.
It is.
Somebody just.
But they're fascists. The thing you're looking for is the word fascist, right? That they're fascists. That the aristocracy, when they ran the whole serfdom thing, it was fascist. They want a fascist utopia. I mean, it's as plain as day. I mean, that's what the agenda is a fascist utopia.
Who built the Georgia Guidestones? See, no concrete answer, huh? Isn't that a bizarre situation?
It is. I've been there. It's a strange place. But R.C. Christensen. But the thing about the Georgia Guidestones is that it lays out a fascist utopia. There's one state, one economy, one religion. It's all there. It's a fascist utopia. The word you're searching for is fascist. Don't use Nazi, use fascist. It's actually more accurate.
Well, and you have to stop and ask, how could the guide stones, I was going to say jive stones, I almost said that,
right.
the Georgia guide, how could they even be built? Unless, you're talking about the basic fundamentals here. You have the county government, city government, state government, but...
Well, it's simple. It's built because they bought the land. Christensen bought the land, right? He paid the quarry to pull the stuff out. He paid the guys to chisel the message in. He paid them to erect it. Paid for everything in cash. Went through a banker. The banker was the only person in the universe that knows who this guy is. I think the banker just died. Refused to tell anybody who R.C. Christensen was. Said that he was well known. Said that you would know who he is, but he won't say who it is. But everything always goes back to the aristocracy. At some way, it always ends up, in the aristocracy or in some sort of a fascist power structure.
And it's funny how you can tie all of these things that we just talked about tonight. They can all kind of weasel their way into the concept of Alternative 3 and the breakaway civilization. Everything that we talked about tonight.
Yep.
All of it, and we're we're ending on the Georgia Guidestones for a reason, because everything that we talked about tonight, it seems like everything is connected in a very strange way, and it's almost to the point where you can't untangle the web. It's like all in place and all obvious. People talk about connecting the dots all the time, and you start to. It's not by chance that all of this stuff just fits together going back 1,000 years or more.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And, in the book, what I did is I plotted it out to try to expose, how it all fits together. Because in conspiracy research, what we never have is the end game. We see the game. We can see the economic manipulation, social manipulation, media manipulation, this manipulation, that but we never know why. We never see the end game. To me, when I saw Alternative 3, I had a eureka moment, and I said, you know what? This is the end game. This is where it's all heading. It has to be. This is the blueprint. I mean, it's a terrible movie, but this is the blueprint.
Right. You know what? It's not. It's not. No, I don't think it's terrible.
It's not terrible, but I mean, it's not amazing. It's you're not watching 2001, which has its own
right.
manipulative outcome.
But what Alternative 3 did do is it fooled everybody.
Everyone. Oh, yeah.
And so, no, I don't think it's bad. I mean, when you watch it.
You should watch it.
I love it, man. I've watched it so many times. Okay, so really quick, we're at the end of the show. Thanks for hanging out for an extra few minutes, too.
No problem.
The new book came out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I have a couple of them. I've got The Pyramids Speak, where I wrote about the pyramids. I've got America, Strange and Supernatural History. There's the Ark of the Covenant and other secret or other historic weapons. And then on Adventures Unlimited, The Secret Space Age.
All of those subjects are what we deal with every single day. I can't wait to get you back on the show. And
I'd love to be on.
Yeah, we got to jump into Egypt and everything else. Okay, so what's the website and where can everybody find the books?
You can find the books on Amazon. Just do a search on my name, if nothing else. ParanoiaMagazine.com. I publish Paranoia Magazine. Anomalies.net. Those are the two main places to find me.
Okay, very good. Olav Phillips, thank you so much. Are you speaking anywhere? Anything coming up really quick?
No, I don't really do conventions.
Thank you so much for coming on. We got to go. We got to come on and do a show on the Ark, and we'll jump into some Egypt and some pyramid stuff.
Love it. I was on America Unearthed even.
Yeah. Hey, Scott Walter's the man.
Awesome guy. Love that show. Love Scott.
All the best. Thank you so much, and have a great, safe New Year. Thank you, Olav.
Thank you.
Olav Phillips, everybody. Everybody jump into Twitter right now and say good night to Olav. Thank you, Olav.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, look, I've got 1 minute left. I want to, Olav is great. He's the best. And thank you, everybody on Twitter and stuff. Look, I'm more than freaked out about what's going on over in Indonesia and Malaysia right now. And I hope, this is me. This is me. This is my soul speaking. I hope that we wake up tomorrow, they find the plane, and it's not going to be a situation like MH370. I swear to you, that's what I do not want any other outcome than that. I'm feeling a little funky. In that, over the last 48 hours, I was hoping I was going to wake up yesterday. I was hoping I was going to wake up this morning, and the plane was going to be found, and we don't have anything to trip on. But it doesn't seem to be that kind of party right now. And right now, there's no answers. They don't have anything. And that, to me, in today's technology, with everything that happened with MH370, today, this is not the answers. This is not the way to speak to us. And I want some explanations. And that's where I am coming from. I want everybody to think about that. I want everybody to feel positive. Like, tomorrow morning, we're going to wake up. They're going to find that plane. It's okay. Woo, it's not what we thought it was. That's what I'm hoping for. This is Fade to Black. Feels so good to be back on a Monday. Bespoke radio for the masses. Tomorrow night, don't forget, Richard Dolan right here. Thank you to Olav Phillips. Stay tuned. Coming up next is Expanded Perspectives. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. Thanks to LJ3, Renee, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Method. Method, get better. I'll play your song tomorrow. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro by SpaceBoyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. Tomorrow, TruthFunders.com launches. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Good night, everybody. Be safe. See ya.